Well, there's nobody here yet. Oh, there's Paul. Hi, Paul. Can you hear us? I'm doing well.
I can hear you. It's a little loud where I am, so I'm just going to listen.
Okay. And Lynn, I just want to make sure you can hear us, and can you unmute yourself? Just to test it out.
Yes, I can hear you. I just joined in. And
Okay.
let's see. I don't see my video.
No, yeah, your video doesn't look like it's on. You might, if you have one of those little covers on your camera.
Sorry about that.
I was right. I'm tech support over here. Okay, so why don't we call the meeting to order, and we'll, I'm having a feeling a couple more might trickle in, but we can get started. Actually, give me 1 second to open up my agenda. Okay, so let's call the meeting to order at 7:01. And somebody else join. First item is, or second item is roll call and seating of alternates. So for roll call, we'll start with myself, Christina Davis, I'm present. Pam Summers. Here. Judy Austin. Here. Keith Lipker.
Here.
Paul Varga.
Here.
That was kind of loud. Angie DeSanto is not present. So our regular members, and Tim Rhodes, alternate, not present. Paulin Love, alternate, not present. And Hugh McKenzie, not present. We do have a quorum, so we can proceed. I think we can go through a few items. Obviously, we're missing the first select woman. I'm hoping that she will be joining shortly. So we'll go ahead and hopefully she'll be here soon. In terms of communications, we had a communication from the town clerk regarding the rules around making a motion and or voting on minutes when you were not present at the meeting. And the initial sort of feedback was that's not allowed. I asked, is this a state statute? Is it Robert's rules? Like, where are the rules about that? And that's when she came back and said, well, technically it's not allowed. It's just not suggested. If everybody saw that email. So I did look it up in Robert's rules. There actually is a very specific line in Robert's rules that says, it doesn't matter if you're not present at the meeting, you can vote on the minutes. However, it's important to note that Robert's rules is not the law. We don't have to follow Robert's rules. The only reason why I think we might get into a situation where someone who wasn't present has to vote on minutes is when we only have 4 people. That's our quorum. And if one person votes, like we could get into a situation where someone almost has to vote, otherwise we can't act on the minutes. So that's my only concern with that, but.
I thought that most of us, if we weren't here, we just abstained.
Yeah. Right, but if like, let's say 2 people were not, we have 4, let's say we have 4
Right.
people here. 2 people happen to have not been at the previous meeting. 2 people voting is not enough to pass a motion. So we couldn't act on those minutes. It's not the end of the world. We could always move it to the following meeting.
Because if there was somebody that was present, maybe want to make a correction. Offer the correction, and the people You know, it just seems to make sense that you would postpone.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Okay, so that was one communication. There was another communication from Cindy Ford, the superintendent. About teacher salaries. I'm just gonna call that up real quick. It's taking longer than I thought. There it is. So she wrote, last week, the Board of Finance asked for the average teacher salary for fiscal year 26 without longevity. The response is 75,231, and with longevity, 76,118. Longevity is grandfathered in for any teacher hired 2013 or earlier. This is not in current contract language. So that's what the average teacher salary is, roughly 75,000. And then additionally, I heard from the tax collector today regarding the revenue side of the budget, and her email was included in the array of PDFs that were sent today. There were a bunch of responses to the questions, Town Aid Road, there were a bunch of PDFs. One of them included the tax collector's comments on how she arrives at the revenue estimate. So we can talk about that when we get to that part of the budget, I'm sure. So I think that's it in terms of communications. So the next item is approved minutes for the regular meeting of February 20th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Judy.
I'll second it.
Were you both present at that meeting? Okay.
Oh, I thought she made it.
No, she did.
Okay.
No. I'm just
Okay.
literally, I can't remember who's at a meeting or not. I'm just asking, were you at that?
Oh, I was here.
Okay, right. Okay, any discussion on those minutes? They were quite lengthy, given that it was the Board of Ed presentation. So there's a lot in there. Any edits or comments about that? Okay. All those in favor? Hi.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
One abstention from Keith. Okay. So next item is public comment. Would anybody like to make a public comment? Okay. New business. We do have the select women's update. Catherine, I don't know if you want, I know I saw a late breaking email from you.
Yes, I actually have physical copies for you as well, all of them. They're here. So, the assessor has been notified me yesterday that House Bill 7067, which is assessment of motor, one portion of it, section 2, is assessment of motor vehicles for property taxation.
Thank you.
And that was. Bear with me. That it was, signed by the governor yesterday, and I see that we have Lynn on here, which is fantastic. So what these are, this is bulleted information about it, and Lynn and I will be meeting tomorrow, either tomorrow or Monday, to go over what this really means. So I'll just read it quickly. HB 7067 was introduced and passed by the House and Senate on the 24th of February. Governor Lamont signed it Monday evening. Section 2 of the bill is a local option that would allow municipalities to increase the depreciation table used to value motor vehicles. This would result in an increased motor vehicle grand list. This local option can be enacted by vote of its Board of Selectmen and can be made effective for the 10/1/2024 grand list. Lynn is assessing the impact of this local option and is going to update me. The only thing I do want to say about this is there's a good side and a bad side to this. One is it would allow us to, increase monies coming from taxing motor vehicles. And the other part is that it's bad because it would be taxing motor vehicles at a rate that maybe we don't want to tax them at. So, we'll get more information about it. Lynn, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to this?
Well, I think she can, cover that in our she's on the agenda to go over the grand list,
Oh, all
so
right.
she could cover it during that.
Okay,
item.
so the other thing is Ashford School Solar. Funds are needed for MHR services. MHR is the company that we've been working with for the last 3+ years on solar. The person we're working with has been very patient with us. One of the issues we had is didn't have a roof good enough to put the solar on. Now we do. However, we have a ZREC, which guarantees a rate of return or whatever on the solar that is being proposed. We've already brought this project before the public in a public hearing and in a town meeting. But we do know that we need some more support and we'd like to work smart. And part of the working smart is, first of all, because of delays in completing the roof, we still don't have the skylight in. And working on the budget and everything, we really haven't had a lot of time to go and focus on this. So, we have already applied for 2 ZREC extensions and gotten them. The last one was October 1st, I think. And this one would be for April 1st. Now, with the third one, you have to do an appeal to PURA. We think that we could be successful there, we may not. Almost doesn't matter because there are other options for us. What we need services from this, and now I forget this name, help me. Oh, Chris. I'm sorry?
Mark Robbins.
Mark Robbins, thank you. It's like having my husband with me, thank you. Filling in the words. We need support from him. We'd already discussed this and we're working on this before. And it just got put on the side table. To facilitate the appeal to PURA for the third ZREC, we need his help there. To procure an electrical schematic, procure a vendor and provide abstract scope sufficient for interconnection application and electrical drawing for MDP 3-phase upgrade. And what we want to do is ultimately, when we have an RFP we've already crafted, he crafted for us. And we want to update that. But what we want to add to it is we want to add the kind of information that would be very specific about what we want, as opposed to waiting for the PPA power purchase company, this power purchase agreement, for them to do that kind of work and farm it out wherever. Instead, what we'd like to do is make sure that we are very specific in what we want, that it's included in the RFP with a PPA, the draft or whatever, PPA attached, the agreement attached. So there's no confusion on the part of the company. It would be it would be the system owner, because a PPA is a power purchase agreement. It's not us owning it ourselves. And we want to make sure that all of the work that's done can be done in advance, is there and very specific when we put this out for RFP. So we want those things attached to it. And we'll be working with town council as well. And we already have had some conversation with town council. So what's needed is somewhere, we got an estimate of about 16,000 for what MHR needs to do, but the actual electrical schematic, and this is, bear with me, this is specific enough to be which wires go where. kind of thing. The other thing that's a part of this is that we need to make sure that bear with me, that the electrical circuitry at the school, where things are set up are, adequate to support all of the solar that's needed and any other kinds of needs that school's gonna have in the near future regarding any kind of electric, components in their school, that kind of thing. So we do anticipate that there's going to be a unit, and maybe Bill, you've been involved with this stuff before, a subunit installed there as well. So all of that would be incorporated into what we're putting out in the RFP, to be very specific about what's needed. And they need to do that full evaluation. So it's about $16,000 for what MHR will do, and then they would procure a vendor for the interconnection application. So I'm anticipating that this is going to cost probably somewhere between 20,000 and 25,000. And that's probably an overestimate. I've talked with Cindy at the school. She's talking with the Board of Ed tonight to see if potentially they can ante up some money from the non-LEPSA fund. And I'm hoping that we can essentially split the cost of whatever this is, you know, between this group and the school, just as we did essentially for the oil tank.
Mm.
Also, we have monies that are coming back from the oil tank. I think it's about $34,000. I don't have anything official on that, but Cindy mentioned that when I talked with her yesterday. So I kind of put this together very quickly. I don't know if you're clear on what I'm asking about or talking about, so if you have questions, please ask.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Shouldn't this be part of the capital budget?
We would have put it in the capital budget. You can put it in there, but the monies are gonna be needed before that.
Like when?
The one, right now, we need him to pursue this because we have MHR to pursue this because we need to get that third CREC extension in, this month. So I just want to get your sense of this in terms of, you know, this project needs to go forward. It's been planned for 3 years. And part of what we're telling Pura are why did we not do this before we got to the point of having a third CREC extension? And so, you know, some of the things that Mark talked with us about, and with Cindy and me, were, we didn't have a good roof to put it on. So now the roof is up. And, that was the primary thing, timing wise. So there's some other factors that come into play. We also need to make sure we've got a good schedule to make sure that we can complete the install and everything that has to happen, because there's a process afterwards in terms of testing and certification and all of that. Within the period, we need to be able to tell for the ZREC the period of time that that's going to be all completed in. Or the state. No, is it Eversource? I think it's Eversource. And the state on the ZREC.
Are there any other questions from the board about this?
How long does the Z-Rec extension last?
That's just it. When we ask for this one, that's why we need a schedule. To be able to tell them, we are looking at this period of time. Okay, before it was kind of a set thing, it was 6 months. Again, the last extension was October 1st. So it's kind of a 6-month thing. Cindy and I talked about it. We talked about it with MHR, and ideally, we would want the solar to go up on the roof when the school's out of session next summer. It's a big roof. I've walked that roof, so I know it's a big jump. And other than that, there's not really outlay from the town for this. This is something where when you enter into a PPA agreement, you're really working with the group that's gonna be the system owner. And they're gonna be looking for what cut they are able to get out of the savings, or actually I'm gonna call it rechanneled electricity. You can tell I'm not a techie on this. So this is really the extent of what we need for support. Financial support. And we didn't have the answers or anything, for the capital improvement committee. We didn't have anything to work with until now. So, this can be added to the plan. We can, provided the plan passes in July or whenever, we can, in anticipation, start work. But the reality is, they need to start work now. So, any other questions? And normally I don't come with something rushed like this. This is a matter of, we had conversations with them, we've worked with town council, on the, agreement, not the PPA itself, but the agreement for these services. They've already been providing services. Now we don't have any more monies to provide to them. The delays were not on their part, they were on ours.
Do you have sufficient time to put together that kind of detailed request before, I think it's due by the end of the month or something?
Yeah, actually, they want to get it done a little bit before the end of the month because it does not look good to be putting in an extension on the last day. So I realize that this is a really time crunch thing. I just found out how crunched it was.
Yeah,
Or is.
I guess whoever's going to put this together, are they gonna get it right? Because you're gonna be, I mean, it sounds
They've
like.
done this before. Okay, so first of all, they've done it before. We have a really great working relationship with MHR. They have been more than patient with us. They've tried to provide different things. It's gone through 2 different selectmen in terms of our interactions with them.
So would the selectmen review it and approve it before it goes out?
I'm not sure the best way to do this.
We
I
haven't
really,
reviewed this particular thing that we're talking about right now.
MHR, so solar.
We had a
So it doesn't,
hearing.
doesn't the Board of Selectmen need to vote on it though, to send it to us?
We can always have a quick meeting to do that, but I wanted to make sure you have a heads up.
I mean, it's a lot,
literally
it's a lot to
just wrote
take
this
in,
down.
yeah, it's a lot to take in, given that we're in the middle of a budget and we're in the middle of considering capital. I personally, I'm just one person, would like to see more detail.
Okay.
Hearing a range, oh, maybe 20, maybe 25,
Well, what
I'd like a real number, I'd like some projections on what exactly we're doing, cause I've been under the impression like. The solar for the roof at the school was gonna be. Kind of pay for itself, and that I think we maybe seeded something, like how much have we spent on this to date? If anything,
we've
what
spent-
have we authorized at town meeting? I think maybe we have, I don't know, just something that really pulls it all together so that we can understand. What has been spent or not been spent, what
Alright.
will be spent.
We'll do that. The reality is, if we cannot get this done, there won't be solar on the roof. We won't get the Z-Rec. Okay, and we will miss the window of opportunity.
And isn't there a penalty of like $275,000?
No.
It wasn't,
That was
okay.
that was the fire department group.
Oh, there's, okay, I
When
knew
they-
it was
when they wanted
someone's.
to Take the solar off, and
Right.
just so you know.
Right,
Just so you know, I know I told, I believe your board before, but you may have new members that don't know. One of the things about the roofs, the solar on the fire department roof, fire station roof. Is that originally it was supposed to cover the roof and a side.
right.
And so you'll hear, oh, wow, we only get a $40 a month savings on or whatever. Well, the reality is they also found out that a transformer had to be put up on a pole outside near the road. And someone, I don't know how much it is. I can tell you a transformer that I've talked with Eversource about regarding this project itself, it's $15,000.
Mm.
So I'm not sure if we were penny wise and pound foolish at the time. The reality is they didn't pursue that. And as a result, the solar components put on the fire station roof are just basically in one area of the roof. And so they're not getting the payback that they were looking for.
Right.
And if this board, after the board of selectmen approves it and it comes to us, would this have to go, if we were to approve it, would it have to go to town meeting?
If it's over $20,000, yes. So what I'm looking at is, okay, I already got an estimate for his services. Mark's services, because he's our agent in this. He would be our owner's rep. He's the most knowledgeable. He knows what we're looking for. He knows that for example, even the school has been planning. They've got a program that they're setting up at the school. They want the solar display of the solar's production and its status up in the lobby or something, so the kids can all see it, so that they start to understand what it is, and some other activities that are related to working with, to learn about this and probably other energy options.
But even if we were to approve this at the next Board of Finance meeting, if we then have to call a town meeting, could we do that within the time frame that we're?
Well,
talking
I'm actually trying to get the number down below 20,000,
about? Okay.
if at all possible. And as I said, Cindy's talking to her board. When we were talking with Mark, I did a rough estimate, went, okay, $25,000, which I knew was an overestimate. But I was kind of like, okay, is there something hidden here that we need to flesh out?
So it sounds like you'll be able to bring us a more exact number next.
Yeah,
Why can't
so-
you take it from the 2% and then
well,
cash it
I
out
asked,
after?
that's what I asked, okay? And she's going to her board to ask about that. And that's tonight.
And that way we're not under the gun when we're trying to figure out a budget and everything else and getting.
Right. And maybe, with the initial response that she had, and she's great to work with. So, okay, they're already taking 60,000 out, off from the non-lapsing fund for the plan for the ADA doors and for a staggered approach to replacing the windows. So I know that was discussed in our,
So that's
Capital
in the
group
capital,
meetings.
yeah.
all right, so again, best option is they agree to take it out of their funds. They may want to, I don't know, work a deal with us in terms of take it out of those funds for now, maybe replenish some of them. I don't know, I'm just trying to think ahead.
Okay. All right, I do want to move on because we have a full
Yeah,
agenda.
Me too.
So. Next is the grand list, so that's you, Lynn.
Okay, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I am fine. How are you? The members have the information that I emailed you in their packet tonight.
Yeah, I shared the email with everybody. I also
Okay.
included a link in the agenda. I can pull up.
No,
that,
I'm just gonna do a summary. I just wanted to make sure that they did have it if they do want to reference it. You know, I'm gonna try to make it brief and, but that information, they may want to reference it as I go over the summary. So the grand list did go down this year. It went down 1.89%. It was 370 million. I'm just rounding up. It was 370, well, I'm just rounding. It's 370 million last year. It's 363 million this year. And all towns throughout the state are experiencing this unless a town was doing a revaluation. Locally, the Wyndham area assesses, we do, we poll all the towns to see what their grand list ends up each year. In the Wyndham area towns that were not doing a revaluation, the decrease for them ranged from minus down 0.51% anywhere up to 2.99% decrease. For Ashford, our real estate gross assessment did go up. Our personal property did go up. However, our motor vehicle went down 17%. And the primary reason for the overall decrease is the new method in which the assessors now value motor vehicles. Just to give you a little history of why we are where we are right now. Prior to October 1st, 2024, assessors used the used average retail price. That's what we use to value motor vehicles. We did that for decades. And then of course we take 70% assessment. Typically values go down from year to year. However, post 2020 pandemic, we saw statewide an increase in motor vehicle 21 grand list. Values went up. To resolve potential future fluctuations in motor vehicle valuation, new legislation was enacted and effective for the October 1st, 24 grand list. We now use a depreciated MSRP, which is the manufacturer's suggested retail price, based on the age of the motor vehicle. And it ranges from 85% good down to 15% good with a minimum of a $500 assessment. One example would be if the MSRP of a 2024 vehicle is $40,000, the depreciation schedule that we have to use now, we would take 85% good of that 40,000. So we would have a value of 34,000. And of course we assess at 70%. So 34,000 times 70%, the assessment for that $40,000 MSRP 2024 vehicle this year will be $23,800. Some vehicle assessments increase because of this, because it depends on the MSRP and the age of the vehicle. But the overall 24 motor vehicle grand list decreased. And again, that was the reason for the overall, 1.89 decrease. And Catherine did mention this new legislation, which I have done some analysis and I am gathering more information, and I will talk to her again either tomorrow afternoon or on Monday. And the Board of Assessment Appeals at this point will be meeting on April 1st to hear any appeals that there may be. There are some things that I do have to make some changes. And for example, at the campground, I'm sorry, was there a question?
No.
Okay.
Keep going.
So at the campground, we have roughly 250 trailers, travel trailers there, each seasonal campers. And we have over 60, we have a percentage of them that are registered in other Connecticut towns, so they have to reach out to those towns and have them send them to me. Those haven't been added yet to the grand list. So that will be reflected in when I give you the update on April 3rd. And I was trying to keep it brief. So I guess at this point, are there any questions?
I have two questions.
Sure.
So these additional vehicles that are at the campground, do you have any sense of what the impact would be? I mean, because we're using the grand list to calculate the mill rate, and we need to make decisions by March 27th.
So yes, and that will be.
So how do we estimate this, or do we just go with the numbers we have? And
I haven't done the the depreciation on those 60 vehicles, those 60 trailers. The other 100 plus vehicles have already been included. So I will, by next week, give you the number of what that is going to be. Normally, I try to get them added before, if the towns give them to me in a timely fashion. I haven't requested them yet because I just have not had a chance to do that yet. I'm just pointing it out that the Board of Assessment Appeals, you know, there could be changes or any changes such as adding these 60 trailers that need to be added. I have their MSRPs, already figured that out. I just need to, you know, figure out the depreciation and figure out what the assessment difference is, and I can email you that information. And that will be reflected in the numbers I give you for April 3rd.
Okay, yeah, but if we could just get an estimate before.
Oh, yes,
April.
yes, I'm sorry, next week I will give you that.
Okay. And then this state law, am I reading this correct, that this new state law that was literally just signed yesterday? Is that maybe wiping out this new depreciation schedule and we could go back to the old way of calculating it, or
No.
no?
What it is, it was an emergency bill that was introduced because towns having this big decrease. And the current depreciation schedule starts at 85% good. So right now, model years 24, 25, and 26 are being depreciated at 85% good. If you want more clarification on that, I'll give you that in a little bit. And it goes all the way down to 15%. It's based on the age of the vehicle. And then I can only have a minimum of $500 assessment for older vehicles. This new legislation that just passed, it would increase the depreciation table by 5%. So the 85% would now be 90%, and the 15% years would be 20%. So I did a rough estimate yesterday, and it adds, it doesn't bring us back up to even what the motor vehicle was last year, but it does. I don't have that number right in front of me, but it was over 3 million in assessment that it would bring it up. And again, that's not exact. I did a rough extract into Excel and, you know, ran the numbers with the different depreciations.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question again?
1 second, please. I just want to share so people understand. So last year, now we have a tax cap in Connecticut on mill vehicles at 32.46. So we can't, even though our overall mill rate is higher, we can't tax motor vehicles higher than 32.46. So last year on motor vehicles, we collected $1,378,000. Based on the new numbers that Lynn just shared with this new scheme of valuing motor vehicles and the decrease, we can only collect $1,128,000. So that's a pretty significant drop. That's why this is like really important and why all these changes in the numbers will impact our mill rate and could impact decisions in terms of what we cut, how much we cut, people losing their jobs potentially. So this is, it sounds very arcane and bureaucratic, but it's actually very, very important for all of us to understand. And the sooner we can get clarity, the better, because we're gonna be making decisions on spending and it's all based on the grant list. So just sort of sharing that as context. So what was your question, Pat?
So my question of Lynn is this new legislation, while it certainly affords us an opportunity to, in a sense, increase our grant list, it adversely impacts the taxpayers in town. Correct?
Yes. I am not prepared with all my points of this because I'm still gathering information from other Connecticut towns, what they're doing. But yes, the assessments will go up. And the thing is that if the majority of towns stay at the current depreciation schedule, and we are one of the towns that does go up, you know, it's not same for the 169 towns. And again, I'm not prepared for all of my detail on the research that I'm doing on this change, which just started Tuesday. So I am working on it.
Yeah, and the other, I mean, yes, on the one hand, if we were to adopt this change that's allowed, someone's taxes on their car are gonna go up, but if we don't enact the change, their taxes on their house are gonna go up even more to make up the difference, unless we significantly curb spending.
I'm just remembering all of the complaints, public complaints about how their taxes on their vehicles went up last year or the year before, I can't remember. I thought it was last year. So. Okay, thank you.
So complicated stuff.
Mhm.
Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Sounds like they're keeping you busy. Any other questions about the grand list before we move on? Nope. Okay, thank you again. And we can move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the presentation of the general government budget and the capital improvement plan budget. So,
The first thing I'd like to do, if it's okay, is, did you have any additional questions about the responses that you received to the questions you sent to the selectmen? Clarifications.
I had one.
Okay.
Under the budget or the revenue section, question 2. I had a question about the municipal aids grant.
Oh,
Is,
the 3,000?
yeah, it's not much, but is it in the revenue budget? Cause I couldn't
Yes.
find it. So where, wait a second, I'm gonna look it up.
Because there are two different grants.
Uh-huh.
One is municipal revenue sharing, which is basically leftover monies that the state has in a pot and then it gets divvied out to towns. That is not something that is always guaranteed. And then they went and renamed and it's now municipal grants, which is that 3582.
Right,
Yes.
so
And I believe
where
it's in
is
the-
that?
It should be in the line underneath it, in the revenues.
So,
Right here, so. Oh, you know.
yeah, cause I
Yeah,
just don't see.
Municipal, it's
Oh, there
right
it
underneath.
is.
You got distressed municipal grant
Yeah,
and then the municipal revenue sharing grant and it's 30, oh no, it's not.
right, so there's no, it's not there, so that's why I was
Oh.
like,
I know why, because now it's renamed and it's not tagged in this, but yes, it will, I'll send you an updated. It's a brand new, because they named it municipal grant aid now, so it's another line, so that.
and it just didn't get included.
Yes,
Okay,
because in this system, you have to go and click on the box.
got it.
That's my,
Okay, just wanna make sure I wasn't
yeah,
crazy.
no, it is there.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know.
Any other questions regarding the questions?
Do you need me to walk through any of it?
I mean, I kind of think, it would be good if you just presented the budget and then maybe I feel like that'll probably fill in some holes and then we'll have questions
All
after
right,
that.
if you put it all,
Sure.
I kept these, at a summary level for you. Did you have any?
You want me to pull up the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
I think that'll be better this time. Now I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Folks on Zoom, can you see the PowerPoint? Anyone? Maybe?
It's there,
Paul?
Christine.
Can you see it?
I can, yes.
Okay, good. All right, so I would say go ahead. Jessica.
Okay. We get past the pretty stuff.
Okay.
The overview is here, the increase is $172,000, $172,509. It's a 4.83% increase. We originally had an increase of, I think it was 5.15. After multiple reviews, detailed reviews, the Board of Selectmen made some reductions and brought it down to 4.83%. So that's where that stands. There's assumptions here in terms of what the insurance rate is expected to increase. I don't know if the school has heard anything more about, or I don't think our office has, about any change to that plan at this point. You also have the heating, oil, diesel fuel, gasoline, and propane pricing here, so that you're aware of what that is. And the assumptions also include an increase in building department hours. Before we had a limited number of hours, now it's at 35. And we did that during this fiscal year. And the increase in the senior center director salary, we actually made it a salaried position. Prior to this, it was a hourly position with full benefits. And in addition, we increased senior center hours by 5 hours a week. So it's now, the senior center is now open from 9 to 4, Monday through Friday. And it's another part of this, and you saw that in responses to questions, your questions, is that prior to this, the senior center director and municipal agent for the elderly positions were two separate positions that were being, that were filled by the same person at that hourly rate. So within the budget, the detailed budget, what we did was, this is one position now that covers both things and both sets of responsibilities. And we had tried for a period of over 5 months to find someone to fill the position. And we were unable to do that using the rate that we had before. So we put out a updated version of the posting. And we were able to hire, if you will, a person who's quite qualified. And I have to tell you, the people who've interacted with her, the seniors, et cetera, are all very pleased to have that person there. But the salary increase was somewhere, I think it was over $24,000, because we made it a salaried position and because we couldn't get anybody for less. Certainly not anybody who was competent. So, and again, that includes the expansion of senior center hours. Also, in the assumptions, was a 3% contractual increases that are for 2026. We have a 3-year contract with the union. In the past, pretty much historically, as goes the union, so go the other employees. When it comes to. There's also a list of shared services with the school. You have also saw those, I believe, or at least a version of them on the school's presentation. Any questions about this? Okay, we move on. This next picture shows the distribution, general government management, insurance and benefits, buildings and utilities, community programs and services, public safety, DPW, public works, the transfer station, and general liabilities and other types of, costs, expense. It gives you a sense of how it splits out.
Just a small thing, but you might want to correct it in case we use it somewhere else.
23.6.
Yeah, that's just.
I just saw it
Little
myself.
typo.
You have no idea how many times I've looked at this. 4. 2. And that's the only one. Yes, I will correct that. My apologies. Okay, going to the next slide. This is, reflects what our staff is. We're not boring you, we're taking you through it, but do you have any questions about any of them?
So isn't there, because this was one of the questions on the selectman's clerk, I think is the title,
Which one?
selectman's clerk.
Yes.
That's in the budget, but I don't see it listed here. It's funded but not filled,
Oh.
is that correct?
We have not hired that person yet,
Right.
so we don't have that staff yet. I can add it if you want that.
I just think
I
it's
can add that
important
and
for
say
folks
it's-
to know,
And I could actually add that as part-time and say it's pending.
right, or not
I
filled.
can do that.
And then the same note, right, just to clarify. Under tax collector,
That's the assistant part-time.
we have the assistant listed, but that is not filled, correct?
She had someone she was working with. I don't think that that person is available now. However, there's been no pursuit of anybody else. She has not pursued having anybody else come in.
Okay.
And we're assuming that we're going to need that person, that part-time person. However, we don't think we're going to need it for $18,000 a year. We think that 9,000 would be appropriate, more appropriate. And that was based upon the actual for 2025 today. Which were only what, 2.5, 2,500?
2,500.
So, and we know that there was, work has been going on, so apparently it's not needed.
Anybody else have questions on this one?
Okay. So we'll move on to the next one. So went through the budget and then, okay, what are our key areas of increase? I didn't get into where we've had decreases. Because it really was not germane to what people are really looking at. So the, under wages is a $77,035 increase overall. And some factors in that are the contractual increases. And then the senior center director / agent for the elderly, which is salaried and there are increased hours. The building clerk, increased office hours. Selectmen's clerk, 15 hours a week. Okay, this is based upon estimates for 2025-26. Any questions about that? And by the way, that even includes the secretaries for your board, for the board's commissions and committees. Which I don't think there were increases in there.
Yeah,
When
it's
I was
not an
doing-
increase.
When I was doing the totaling, I included those. Could I move on to the next?
Sure. Well, it doesn't look like there is another one.
I don't mean next. thing.
Oh, next topic.
You wanted to brief, I've got it summarized. Ashford Volunteer Fire Department, they have a $73,000 increase. That, you all have the detail budget that they submitted. There was a small micro, error in their, summary page. Where it said it was they had a 10% increase. No, it was 11 point. Yeah, oh, Paul's already said that?
Yeah, Paul sent it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, so this covers the primary areas of increase that we're pointing to are the insurance and dispatch services, repair, maintenance. There's some other items as well. And then a $1 an hour increase to paid staff. As was pointed out in their budget package, their, paid staff gets no benefits in terms of insurance, those kinds of benefits. And, sick time. So this 1 hour increase is to continue to incent them to stay.
And how many are getting paid?
I couldn't hear you.
How many?
I'm still couldn't get.
How many people?
I think there was a list in the,
Yeah, it's
in the
in
budget itself.
here.
The budget?
Or no, it was
not
in
that, no,
it was
their
in the
budget.
answers. Oh, no, you're right. It's in the budget.
It's in their budget and.
Yes, it's in their budget. Is Paul still on?
I'm here. I can try and answer the question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Judy just asked how many paid people there are at the fire department.
We have 6 full-time employees and 5 part-time.
Very good.
Thank you.
So that detail, Judy, is in a document that was emailed today.
I don't have that. Thank
No, I know. It's just if you want to look
It
back
was in
at it.
the original as well. Paul, when you emailed your document today, did you just change that 10% item?
Yes, I just, I changed the 10% to reflect the correct number, and then I resent the spreadsheet so it reflected the correct number too. There's no other changes in it.
Can you hear him?
No. Paul, we didn't catch much of that because of the background noise.
Yeah, sorry. All I did was resend it with the correct number, of the 11.21%, and then the spreadsheet, I reset the spreadsheet just to show the correct percentage, that's all. There's no changes in the numbers, other than that typo in the 10% versus 11.
So the department description says, they have 6 full-time paid firefighter / emergency medical technicians who man the station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in addition, the department employs 5 firefighters and or emergency medical technicians on a per diem basis to supplement the full-time staff as needed. That's on page 3 in the department description of their detailed budget, which has the mission statement and the department description. Any other questions about the fire department's request?
I know,
Down.
and I know Catherine, you attached that Ashford Fire Department to an email to Christina.
Yeah, and then
She
got
sent it out,
she
to
sent
everyone.
it to everyone.
And then what happened was Paul corrected the 10%.
Yep.
Thing in the summary and sent it, that corrected version out, but there were no other changes.
No.
My knowledge.
So is the version that I received have a typo in it?
The very first one, yes, the one that Catherine sent to you.
Oh, yeah, it's got all this information. He just sent it out again. Or when he sent it the second time, had he sent the whole package or just that correction to that one
Just the
page?
correction to the one page.
But what I'm saying, I have not received anything from Paul.
You should.
No, I sent it to you.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure the version I received today is the correct version.
The version she received today was just that page.
No,
I didn't think I thought that whole thing.
At quarter to five this morning, you got an email from Catherine that included the fire department budget
Yeah.
request, the
Yep.
original.
Yep.
Then Paul sent the corrected page to, Catherine.
Oh, I thought you sent it to.
And no, it's got.
I'm sorry.
So I will forward the corrected
Okay.
page.
yeah, just
To
so
Christina.
you don't hear from me.
I made an assumption
That
that
the
that was the whole
numbers
budget
are messed
again.
up. So is this $73,000 increase the correct number? The
Yes.
correct-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. It's just
Nothing changed except that
the percentage.
percentage in the summary description.
Okay.
Okay. Whoops. Go back to it. So the next item. Employee benefits. The health insurance rate, again, as was mentioned before, we are anticipating an increase of 10% in the rate itself, and that's been applied to the, where we have, health insurance laid out in the budget. We also have for youth and social and youth services, we picked up this year when we hired our new, director for that group, that, social youth services director, picked up that family, in our insurance as well. So that also brought up the increase. Contracted services. We were paying $35 an hour on an hourly basis for our inland wetlands and watercourses agent. That person did not work out well. So what we did, we tried to find someone else. And ultimately, we contracted with NECOG, Northeastern Council of Governments. And, for inland wetlands agent. I will tell you that the person we got is outstanding, absolutely outstanding, and he's provided us with information on how we can improve some things down the department, et cetera. He's very familiar with GIS and a lot of other things that NECOG provides support on. So it's actually, we kind of get an extra benefit of having this person here. So that increased our budget for the inland wetlands, the inland wetlands and watercourses budget.
So the person previously was doing it for how much per hour?
It was $35 an hour, this is $70.
So it doubled. I mean, that's a lot.
You know, our options, the thing is, you cannot find these people. That's the problem, and particularly one of those.
And how many hours per week does this person usually work?
I think it's either 15 or 18. I just can't remember off the top of my head. I can double check that because we have a contract with NECOG for these services.
And this person works for other towns as well, I would assume?
Yes, he does. However, you know, we've had experiences not with this particular situation. Although the person we had previously has also worked for other towns. What we're finding is that this person is so reliable and so knowledgeable. And he does provide critical support to the Inland Wetlands Commission in terms of setting up information for their meetings, agendas, that kind of thing. In addition to doing inspections and so in some ways you get what you pay for. The reality is if we were trying to go out and hire someone on our own, It's unlikely that we would be able to bring in one, and it's unlikely we could get someone. Second of all, it's unlikely we could get them for $35 an hour. So, and in fact, that was $35 an hour plus. Literally, I got a description of a bill that I asked for, where it was his travel time from the time from where he was till he hit the Ashford border. So I don't believe we have that kind of a situation with the agent we have right now. So I know our selectmen, we've looked at, are there ways that we could take these contracted services, because we have a contracted building official, contracted inland wetlands agent, contracted zoning enforcement officer. And, are there ways that we could actually have employees instead? And at this point in time, it doesn't seem to be a viable solution because you can't find them. And Bill, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
No, most of the municipalities across the state are having problems getting certified staff that specialize in these sort of things. I think when we went with the legal person, we kind of hoped for that's a temporary situation. But we're not real optimistic we're going to go to somebody that's capable of doing their job right now.
And we put an ad in the Citizen, that was a start. I got no feelers on it. So. Okay, so of the other contracted services are data processing, like software and licensing fees. The assessor's office is looking at, something that costs about $7,500 in software. That was described in the responses to your questions. And that is software that takes that provides aerial imagery that has fantastic resolution. And it is not something that's just done once a year. It's something that is done over a period of time, and it makes it so much easier for the assessor to be able to see how a property changed or what the elements of the property changed over time. And what it's really good for are properties that you really can't get out to. They're in areas where you maybe can't get to it, and you certainly can't see it from that perspective.
So that's software that's already been acquired or
No, it is
planned
not.
to be acquired?
It's, we're looking to acquire them. Okay. Registrar of voters, these extended voting hours are killing us. We're not getting any money from the state for this year. We were lucky enough to, and that's also in the responses. We were able to get monies for calendar year 2024. And the state provided those, but they couldn't be used past November of 2024. So we were able to offset some of our costs this year with those monies, this fiscal year with those monies. But there's nothing coming, there's nothing coming for the rest of 2024-25, nor is there anything coming from the state to our knowledge for 2025-26. And they have not alleviated the issue for us. In addition, the registrar of voters have asked for an increase in pay for our poll workers, et cetera. And they have technical needs in terms of the machinery and having it, when you're working with something over all of those, over multiple days, there are more technical needs than there are when you have a shorter schedule for voting.
So what is the pay increase for the, it's
I think they
contracted
asked
poll
for their
workers?
poll workers, they asked, I think, $2 an hour more. And for the registrars, I think they asked $1 an hour more. So,
Well, it looks like the part-time wages for the registrar went down.
That is based on, because we don't have a election this year for
Oh.
presidential. That is just for hours
Okay.
for the town.
Okay.
town
Town,
referendums.
yes, the town, no, the town municipal election. The one that's in November.
Correct.
You don't have to do
They
that.
won't get to the next, like they won't get to that one until fiscal year 2026.
That's correct.
26 comes down.
Yes. Yes, it was higher last year because you had the primaries, the presidential, so you needed more days. So for this November, it will be just for the municipal election and it's 5 or 7 days. You don't have to have that 14-day. So that's where that decreased.
So included in their other professional tech services, memory card coding, that's $2,000. Electronic voter checking, tabulator maintenance
So you calibrate the
For-
machines.
for the calibration and recalibration of machines. And so their increase in that particular area is $6,375. And this confirms that they were looking for a $2 increase in contracted poll workers. And that is $5,761. And then proposed raises for the registrars of 90 cents an hour and the moderators 72 cents an hour. And actually, in that particular case, the difference went down about $2,000. So that was based upon some other changes that they made.
Less.
Sorry?
It's for the less hours.
Oh, less hours.
Because they don't have,
That's it.
they don't have
Yeah.
the other elections.
Well, there was this technical needs thing done. For the memory cards and the calibration.
Could you say that again?
How often is the technical needs required? Is it an annual thing? Is it a,
Yes,
is it
it is.
annual?
Oh, no, the tabulation, everything is based upon the election itself.
Yes, they have, usually it's annual, they get the machines calibrated.
They get the machines calibrated just before the election. In fact, that's why you can't go in
Mhm,
after we close the building so that you can't go into it
mhm,
for a couple of days because they had tabulated being done.
mhm.
So, and again, there's electronic voter checking, and that is not happening, well, that's happening not only over during the election where people are walking in, basically on the day of the election over at Knowlton, but it's also happening throughout the, extended period for, early voting. So what they have 10 days of early voting.
14, that's
14. And that's not changed at this point.
That's important.
Yeah.
I can use it, it's 7. In primary student last year. So.
Any other questions? Anything I can elaborate on later?
Um. On the revenue side of things. And. I saw the tax collector's response for question 5. Which was basically like. She's being very conservative and. It's, and she sort of lays out her reasons why, which I understand. I guess my attention went to the revenue side of things this year because we have. I think you can be very conservative on your revenue estimates when everything else is kind of going along well in terms of a grand list going up and state funding going up, but we're not, and a region 19 that's more reasonable. But given all the headwinds we're facing, I feel like we might benefit from being a little less conservative on the revenue side. And I'm not suggesting that we go, okay, well, we're gonna collect 200,000 more in taxes this year and cross our fingers. But if we can find $50,000 on the revenue side in a couple line items, so what are your thoughts about that? And are there any places where we can be a little less conservative this
I
year?
think you're, in this particular case, you're preaching to the choir. Correct? We've looked at it, we actually, we're glad you asked those questions, and I'm glad you focused on that. It caused some more conversations as we were trying to answer the questions over the last few days. So that's something that we can take that to the board of selectmen.
Yes.
Because we didn't have a meeting right before we came here. And, so those, definitely should be considered. And the only reason I, sent the tax collectors, write-up was because I wanted you to have her words.
Mhm.
But we certainly, certainly in talking with the treasurer here, talked about some of the opportunities there. And I think I might have even said something about one of them in particular, said, something to the effect of possibly that. What we do want you to understand is some of those projections can vary widely, or let's just say the results can vary widely. But need to make an educated guess. And, I agree with your thinking about, can we find a way in the revenues to, make sure we increase, that we target having them increased enough to help us with the rest of the budget.
Because what did we have at the end of 2024? Sherry, remind me, what was our surplus? It was about 200, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
of that 200, some of that goes 80,000, I think what the school had. Of that 200 goes to their
Mhm.
non-lapsing, so the 120,000.
Mhm.
So of that 120, those were a couple of positions that weren't filled yet because, one was the clerk, one was the tax collector, and one I believe was also that's this year. The assessor, that's this year's. Yes, so, those positions were left over, and my position was some of that money because I didn't come in until April. I mean, I was part-time, but, there was another line in there that was for full-time, and, I came in. So those are some of those monies, and there was one other that was open, so that, contributed to that amount being left. And then on the revenue side, yes, we collected over, so that adds too, but you typically look at your expenditure, what you're giving back, so. Yeah, I agree with Catherine, we certainly can go over these revenue numbers again, and, meet with the selectmen and see what we can what's gonna be comfortably or attainable, you know. I
Right.
don't wanna go, we do this and then we fall short.
Right, right.
Hole, you know.
Yeah, we don't wanna do that.
No.
But I also think the other piece of it to me
Mm-hmm.
is that for a long time, or at least leading up to the bonding for the school roofs, there was a lot of emphasis on building up that unassigned fund balance, because that percentage is looked at by these
By bond.
credit rating
Yes.
agencies,
Yes,
and
it
the
is.
more
The better.
kind of rainy day funds you have, the less interest you pay.
Yes.
We are not, correct me if I'm wrong, looking down the barrel of any big bonding in the next few years. We don't have to build a school, we don't have to build a firehouse, we don't, right?
Yeah.
So maybe now is not the time to build up the rainy day fund maybe as much as we have in the past.
We do have to bond for the
You do
school
have to
roof.
bond for the school roof.
But the,
Didn't we already do that?
No, you took it, no, we did anticipated notes, so that is going to come down in
the
26,
payments will start
roughly
in 26,
27.
Right, but we,
So we have to go out and
We
get the
haven't.
bond, but in
Oh.
order to do that, there's more pieces that have to be put together.
Yes.
We have conversations with our council,
Mhm.
bonding council on that.
Mhm. So yes, so basically you went to town meeting, got approval to spend up to $5 million. Right now, I mean, I can say we have spent 3.1 million on that roof.
And we anticipate it's gonna go to
And it's
about
gonna-
3.3,
Yes, so,
which
and
will include the bonding activities.
yes, and then we did get grant back in 1.7 million. So what'll happen is that the remainder gets tallied and then you bond for the difference. Or you can roll the anticipated note and pay just interest. And then after 3 years, you start paying principal. So depending on interest rate, because sometimes bonds, it may be higher than the anticipation note, so after 3 years, you could start paying principal and interest on the band and bring that down further.
And we anticipate, as we go through this, laying this out for the board finance, for everybody.
Yes.
In terms of, here are our options,
Mhm.
here's where we save money, here's the benefits and, issues.
and that would hit us, what year again?
26, 27.
Okay.
We
So
confirmed that.
next, this time next year, we'll be talking about.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna start talking with bond council sometime at the end of April, because what happens is this project may be done construction wide, but there's a lot of steps that still will happen.
For closeout.
For closeout and, you know, punch lists, and to make sure that we are in agreement with everything, and that probably won't happen until the middle of summer sometime, you know, if not fall, so. But we've got a timeline that we're gonna start working with bond council and getting this into wraps, and then they'll, you know, lead us as to, you know,
Yeah.
what's best for us. to
And
do.
we've had a really good experience with bond council,
Mhm.
which have a couple.
Bill, you had your hand up.
I did, I guess I'm not necessarily the same choir as Catherine and Sherry right now on the revenue side of it. There's a couple of things that kind of influence me to go slow on that if we're gonna be looking at increasing our percentage of collection. One of them is, we all know we're gonna have a change in that office coming up this fiscal year. Linda has been an excellent tax collector over many years for us with a wonderful track record. I would be happy if we match her collection rates with a new person coming in fresh, getting to know the town with new processes. So I'd be cautious on that end. The only other thing, I know that, you know, it's said sometimes when we're taxing, but we're not, necessarily spending the money because we end up with a $200,000 or $300,000 surplus, if you want, for lack of a better term, at the end of the year. Those figures are also the figures that Board of Selectmen through the Board of Finance have also been generating our balances on our CNR fund. Which we're all concerned about. Those, over the years, if you look at the graph on those rates on what we've been maintaining have been lowered pretty much consistently. So, you know, and that method, I think we've all agreed, has worked out well for us because we're able to go ahead and do some capital expenditures without a direct impact on the mill. So if we get to a point where we're not conservative enough, where we have no money to regenerate those funds, we can get the reverse of what we're hoping for. So just another side of that. I think while we're in, I think there's probably nobody in this room that thinks as the figures that we're looking at from our three sources right now are gonna be able to fly and get a budget passed with a 3 or 3.5 mil increase. I think we have to look at everything. And some of them may, be difficult and challenging to look at. But I would go slow with that particular aspect of it. That's my 2 cents.
Any other questions about the general government budget?
Small question on the activity fund for the senior center. So I know we were talking about that. I didn't realize that it had been implemented.
Yeah.
So explain to me how that works again.
Okay, so Carol, first of all, make sure I captured it correctly.
Okay, so last year, if you remember, we talked about an activities account for the senior center. And so that was put in place for this fiscal year. And of course, it was kind of tough because we had somebody that was leaving, we didn't have anybody new in also, so we're kind of at that end of this fiscal year. So how the activities account works is, in prior years, you've had a line in your senior center budget for trips or, that they plan to do. So from that, you would pay the expense for that trip, and then you would get the revenue on the flip side. For the trip. So if I go on a trip, I pay $100. The bus gets paid on the expenses and then the revenue shows on your revenue side. So they kind of balance each other out. But what happens when you go and want to do more programs, you've only got a budgeted amount, I think it's $6,800, I think it was. I could be wrong.
I thought it was lower than that.
Okay, it could. But let's just say you have $6,000 in your expenses, so you're limited what you can do for programs, because once you meet that expense, you're not supposed to go over.
And then the bottom line is they don't have the money coming back.
And then.
It's 5,600.
Okay, okay. So what this activities account does, that takes this expense out of your budget. So it reduces the senior center budget, but it also takes your revenues out, which I think it was $2,700 that you guys have budgeted in previous years. So that goes into this activities account, so it's a, basically the expense gets put there and then the revenue is net against it. So typical, if it's a, perfect world, it should net to zero. Sometimes you can make extra money if you charge $1 or $2 more for that ticket, so you could have a surplus of $50 on that program, because sometimes what happens if you get the next trip and you don't sell all your tickets, but you still have enough to go, that $50 will cover that 1 or 2 tickets that didn't sell. So, but you can do all kinds of programs in this activities account too. It's not limited what you've budgeted for. If Christina, for some reason, you want to do, a baking class, you can go see the senior director, say, I'd like to do a baking class for seniors, people sign up for it. And then the money comes in and it pays for itself. So it's not something that's budgeted where tax people, have to pay for a program. And if the program doesn't have enough, if the program doesn't have enough, people that sign up for, then you don't have it, so you don't make anything or lose anything. So that's why we set up that activities account, and it has gotten put in place for yoga this year. So that's why there's 0 in the revenues budgeted, and then the, program expense, I think, was set, reduced to.
Well, that's what I was
It was
wondering,
reduced as well.
where is it in the expenditure
It's
side?
under,
It's kind of was lumped into the program.
Senior
expense-
center program expense. And that's on, if you've got senior center items up here, that's on account 110-125-00-56815. Senior center program expense.
So what?
So you're asking for 12,500 in that line.
What am I looking at here?
So that's why
Yes,
I'm
because
confused.
For 24, they spent 17,000.
so, and that was due to more trips that the senior center, the director had done the prior year. So the 12.5 will pay for things like, if you have somebody that comes in and speaks about Medicare, Medicaid, somebody that comes in and speaks about tax, and comes in and speaks about renter's rebate, and you have to pay for that, that's what would come out of there instead of trips and programs.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
And
Sherry,
Yep.
didn't we do a similar thing with the rec department? I know we were.
I've not yet.
Okay.
We talked with them
A
about.
couple of years ago, we were exposing both the rec department and the senior center. And it was at the recommendation of our part-time treasurer at the time, to do that, and the thought behind it, and I know we had discussions with the Board of Finance, in fact, Sherry came in specifically one evening to go over that, was that we could regenerate money, instead of those monies that were taken in, for instance, for a trip to the casinos, that would go into the general fund, that we could regenerate and have more activities.
That is.
And I think that's proven to work out, at least with the senior center.
What it does is it makes it self-sustaining
Right.
Yes,
and much more controllable.
Because what we were experiencing with the senior center was once they'd use that budgeted amount, they'd stop their activities because they didn't have money to be
spend.
regenerated. It seems to have worked.
Well, and the other part of this is that it carries over, whatever you've got there, it stays in
in
the
that
fund,
fund.
carries over. So you can accumulate some money in there to provide even more programs. Any more questions about that? And any others about the general government budget?
Because we still have to go through the capital budget. So.
I'm sorry?
We still have to go through the capital budget.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Are we ready to move on to the capital budget? Yeah. Perfect. All right, let's do it.
So you all received copies of the capital budget on February 28th. And we went through and with the help of Chris and Barry, I put together a document that summarizes, that tells about each of the capital improvement items that are still in flight. And the ones, and then you have the actual spreadsheet, if you will, showing what's being looked at for your 5-year capital plan. So you do have those descriptions, correct?
Yeah, I can, do you want me to call them up on the screen?
Yeah. I'm gonna call them up here.
Which one, but this 5-year capital plan? Yeah, this one? Is this the one you want me to share, the spreadsheet?
That's the spreadsheet. Okay, and you all should have copies of it. If you don't have copies there, the packages, printed, are there, they have your names on it. They sat outside for a few days. I know Paul picked up his. So what you have in there is you have descriptions of all of the previously approved projects and purchases that are basically still in play. So I'm not sure if you want to look at this first or that, because these give you what's already out there, and that is just the 5-year plan.
Can you tell me what you want me to,
I'd rather
Put on the
look
screen.
at the descriptions.
CIP descriptions?
Yeah. That's it. Oh, you can zoom it. That'd be good. So do you all have those?
I gotta see.
You found it.
Okay. I don't know if you read them. I know that they, Christina, sent them out already.
It is.
So would anybody like me to go through them, or are these, is it adequate to just, that you've already seen them?
I think if we could go through the ones that are proposed.
Okay, so the ones that are proposed. one second. All right, so the first one is the Freightliner, 2024 Freightliner dump truck. This project, this purchase was approved. And, it was approved before, and then what is in the plan is $44,000 for fiscal year 2025-26. And this is the 4th installment of the 5-year lease to own contract. Okay, and I'm just gonna go back to because it's a project, it's already, a purchase, it's already in flight. This, vehicle holds 10 cubic yards, it's used for hauling and plowing. The 5-year lease purchase was approved as part of the fiscal year 2022-23 CIP plan, with payments of $44,000 each of the first 4 years, and a last payment of $33,127 to be made in fiscal year 2026-27. So if you also have, and you're a great example, Keith, you also have the chart, the spreadsheet. Keith? Right there. So if you're looking at side by side with the other, you'll see that on that spreadsheet, what it shows is the $44,000 for fiscal year 2025-26, and then the last payment of $33,127 in the following year. Okay. So the also the next one, I think, wait a second, is the 2021 wheeled mini excavator, which has proved to be very handy. And for that, there's a $40,000 payment that is due this fiscal year, this upcoming fiscal year. And the last payment is going to be made during 2025-26. So you don't see anything else on the spreadsheet except for the payment to be made in the next fiscal year. That will be the end of it, and we will own it outright. I think the next one is Public Works Transportation Compactor Rebuild. It's a rebuild of the Marathon RJ 325 compactor that we have, including the MSW hopper and chute, which will address long-term wear and maintenance issues. When this was presented, one of the questions that was asked is, gee, should we get a new compactor, which would be a fortune, I might add. And Casey, our foreman's director's response was, no, we have one of the best compactors they put out there, one of the best kinds of that manufacturer is a very, very good compactor. It just needs some repairs. The next one is the Public Works road resurfacing, which is part of what will be covered by LoSiP funds. And that's $73,058 for our annual local road maintenance program, which includes shimming, paving, and chip sealing Ashford roads. The program is paid for by the state of Connecticut, Town Aid Road, and local capital improvement program LoSiP funds. So this one is essentially a wash. Because you'll see down below in the spreadsheet, you'll see funding for the capital improvement plan. You know, recommended funding sources for it at amounts. And the next one is the Public Works Equipment Trailer for $11,232. This V-Wise, it's called a V-Wise, that's a manufacturer trailer. Will replace the current trailer, which is too short for public works needs and presents a safety issue when machinery needs to be moved from the public works facility to work areas. So, Casey had looked at this, I know, Bill, you had a conversation or two with him about it. And, it's also pretty much rusted out as well, aside from being too short for their needs these days. So this one is $11,232. And it's a one-time payment. The next one is the backhoe loader. What we're looking for is a used one. A new one was about 160,000, so, we're pursuing a used one. And this is to replace the current backhoe, which is a 1995 model with over 8,400 of use, and it has been requiring frequent mechanical repair. The next item is the rotary tiller offset mower. And Public Works has been borrowing this Ashford School mower to maintain walking paths at Ashford Memorial Park and Pompey Hollow Park, and to maintain the Ashford Memorial Park baseball infields. Their efforts have been hindered by the size of the school mower is smaller, and on occasion its availability. Because the school needs to use it at the same time they do, because that's the growing season when the grass is growing. Their efforts of, the model that we're looking at is R2, R1573-32 model. It's a rotary tiller and a sundown flail mower that can be attached to the Public Works 40 horsepower compact trailer to maintain those areas. And I'll add that we're also looking to do some extensions, if you will, or more trails for the town. I know we're looking to put one, when we're using ARPA funds for that, to put one behind where the pickleball courts are, that will go along the river, up high and along the river. And this is something that can be used in there as well. Revaluation is the next one. And that one is, every year we set aside $15,000 for reval. And then we basically bank the monies until we're going to have a reval. So, what was banked to date was, I think, I gotta look back up there. We had banked, we banked, I believe it was 4 years. No, it wasn't, 3 years worth of reval monies. And the 55,000 is to, I'm sorry, the rest of it needs to be banked again. The town is contracted with Equality for reval services for the October 2024 grand list. And that contract is $55,000, which by the way is a bit less than what our previous contract was, so she did a very nice job. The reval is going to be performed from March 2025 through early 2026. The payments starting in first quarter 2025 and ending in early 2026. So this one, you know, the monies are actually spanning multiple fiscal years. And then the next reval after that is supposed to occur in 2030. So what we had a period of time of only 4 years to get to this reval. And then we will have 5 years after that for the next one. And let's see. The next item is the 2026 fire truck. I know that Paul was gonna be doing some more reach out. I wanna make sure we got the model year, the year for the truck correct. And this is to replace the ET 420 truck that they have now. And we've already banked some money on this, and this is the second of 5 annual installments to be banked towards this purchase.
So we've ordered the truck, but we don't have it yet.
Right.
take a while.
Right.
It takes a while, takes a while. And actually, if you could just elaborate a little bit, and when it comes to, you know, when the truck is ready and everything, we have some options in terms of how we finish paying for it. Well, boy, you on the spot, I'm sorry.
Yes, I mean, you can, so say we, by the time that truck comes in and you've banked 3 years, and you've got 2 years of, you know, payments, you could do the option of just spending, you know, paying for it up front, and then you gotta just make sure you put budget for the next couple of years to cover. Or you can go, you know, the bank to get a loan and you pay, finance it, yes. You have a couple different options to do.
So it is kind of
Depending on-
dependent on when the truck comes in.
Absolutely, and what the rates are, because. Yeah.
Okay.
It all depends what the banks are, and sometimes the banks don't take a smaller loan, depends who you're going out to, you know, get your financing from. Some require a certain dollar amount too now, so.
And the question was asked, so once we get this new truck and we retire, we would retire the old truck, we wouldn't keep it. I don't
You know,
think,
we would sell it.
right, which we've done in the
Correct, Chris?
past.
Once we get our new fire trucks, we would sell the other ones.
Presumably we will list it and sell it.
And typically, they get picked up they end up going
I'm sorry?
overseas. Do they end up going overseas? Where do they end up going?
That's what we'll be West Virginia.
Last one went to West Virginia.
There's a national company that we use to advertise it nationwide, and they ended up buying it. Some nice folks in West Virginia who send us pictures occasionally of it, and it's processed down there. It's funny because their station also was station 20. So they didn't have to change those details.
No, that's pretty cool.
I think they made it a pizza oven too. Yeah, it's something like that.
So the next item is the engine bay air circulation fans.
Okay, I'm sorry, I lost my thing I was looking at. Okay, so, this is really, an energy issue. Right now, when I've got no ventilation in, that area, so, when it gets hot, it's really hot. When it gets cold, it's really cold. And the temperature varies dramatically between the top of the bay and the bottom of the bay. So, this is to alleviate that. It should be a little, bit of an energy savings on this, which is good. And I think that amount, I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me right now, but I think it's what, $15,000?
24.
24, I'm sorry. The next one. Whatever reason, I was having a fun with this. So.
Okay, I'm sure everyone here wants to know, are they really called big ass circulation vans? Of course.
Pam, that is the actual name of the company. Kid you
It's
not.
awesome.
It actually says it on some of them. They actually have it printed on the fan blade.
No graphics?
It's a donkey, so
Oh, okay, okay.
Had a little problem with my computer. It's still sticky key thing on the, just a second. Get back to it. Pause. Circulation fans, okay, and then the next one is, fire department equipment to replace the 6 replacement air packs. This is a critical need. And this is actually the second of a 3-round program to replace the air packs used by fire personnel. The first round was paid with American Rescue Plan funds. And, these, air packs, if I understand correctly, have, masks that are tailored to the individual. So, and I believe the ones we have are getting pretty healthy. And then the next one after that is to upgrade the, do lighting upgrades in Station 20. And that's all indoor and outdoor lighting from incandescent and fluorescent to, converting it to LED. We're replacing it with LED, which is more energy efficient. In addition, all interior light fixtures will include motion sensors to help further reduce energy costs. Next one is Ashford School. Every year, we allocate, pretty much every year, allocate monies for either a new bus or a van. And in this particular, the upcoming year, we're looking to get a full-size bus. And I think it's I think there's a 10-year cycle that they have on their buses, possibly their vans as well. So what they do is they look at the oldest ones, the ones that maybe need the most repair or whatever, and they go, time to replace that one. Ashford School, ADA doors, entry doors and window plan, that's $60,000. This is for the services of Fryer Architecture Incorporated to prepare the plan for replacement of the main school lobby entry and exit doors and lower level lobby entry and exit doors for campus security, energy efficiency, and ADA compliance, accessibility, and code. And also to, as part of the plan, work out a sequential replacement of school windows based on the recommendations of the Fryer 2016 general condition study of the school building. Several windows date back to the original construction and to early additions to the school. And the current windows have an R2 rating. The new windows will have a rating of R15, which will significantly improve heating efficiencies. Next one is, and what's good is they're working with the same group that did the overarching or overall assessment of the school building. Back when. Town projects, dog pound upgrade. That's only $7,500. The pound has not been used due to damaged heating and cooling split unit and minor structural issues. So unfortunately, Ashford animals picked up or quarantined need to be placed in the Stafford Springs Animal Facility. The upgrades will include replacement of the heating cooling split unit and small structural modifications to ensure compliance with changes that are coming in state requirements for animal control facilities.
Was it, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it, is it required now that these facilities have air conditioning?
Yes,
That,
heat and air.
right,
Oh, you didn't hear about that other town that got cited big time and had to close theirs down? Because they said basically the animals were, and literally they were not, these animals are put in the care of the town. And, in their particular case, I think they had, when they were shut down, I think they had heavy fines because they did not have it set up appropriately. What is good is that Chris Avacon did some research. We had looked at the new regulations and, we know that the town of Tolland and even Wellington are, in particular, those two towns of a 5-town group, and I've attended their meetings and participated. They're looking to build a new facility because what they've got is absolutely inadequate. And they've got it's millions of dollars to do it. So it's gonna be a big one. So they were looking to enlist Ashford's help and have each of the 5 towns that they've reached out to, Mansfield is another one, and Stafford Springs, and have them each town go for $1 million steep grant to build a big facility, probably to be, located in either Tolland or Wellington. Wellington has space. Tolland apparently has some space too. In order to be able to meet the state's requirements. And, Chris did some great research and discovered that I'm gonna use the term grandfather clause, but the reality is what's required what's required and everything. She took another look at what we have and, got estimates and everything, and went, this is all we need to do to be in compliance. Right now, we share an animal control officer with Stafford, and Wellington. And then our assistant animal control officer is Chris. A lot of the calls that come in from our town go to Chris. And then she can farm out things, or some things she can take care of herself. The other thing too is when your dog or whatever is picked up, then we have some people that, and it has to be quarantined for a period. There are people who wanna go see their animal, walk it, whatever. And, having this here in town is more convenient for that kind of thing. And going back to this. Pavilion concession stand, repairs. This is in Ashford Memorial Park. And, there are sections of those 2 buildings that are rotting. They need to have the sections replaced. They need to have a roof replaced on one of them. I think repainted as well, as part of this. So, they got an estimate of, originally they got 3 estimates actually they ended with 4. And, because one of them got upgraded. So, this is $9,000. Did that work? One of the things we have found is over the years, some of the repairs that should have been done in these parks were not done. So there's a kind of a, the commission, Park and Rec Commission is taking a good look at that. It's everything from the bridge to walking trails to pavilions, etc. Okay. Next one, town projects, virtual meeting system upgrades. This room needs to be re-outfitted with better technology. We worked with what we could at the time. The owl does not do that great a job. You know, it's based upon how quickly we had to put this in here and get that up there and, you know, get everything working and everything. It was great to be able to do that. But we're at a point now where, there are enough issues with what, people are able to hear and see. And, you know, where the camera points when someone's speaking and that kind of thing. If you're not sitting at that table, it doesn't really pick up what you're saying. So, there are some, so there's some re-outfitting that can be done in here. And Zoom meeting management as well, which has to do with, management of, now, capabilities provided to the people who are running the meetings in terms of managing their Zoom meetings. So, and any reusable components from this system here may be repurposed for use in outfitting the selectmen's meeting room located on the third floor. Because certainly we're holding our selectmen meetings in there, in my office or our office. And the reality is that conference room is bigger. Sometimes we have people kind of almost sitting on each other's laps in the office. So, and we want to make sure that the public is able to see and hear and participate in what we're doing. So. Town projects, public works facility repaving, this is our biggie. As a number of you are probably aware, because we did have a town meeting, a public hearing and a town meeting about the match for this grant that we're applying for. Is a small town economics assistant grant called STEEP. And to repave the entire public works facility, which consists of the public works garage area, the transfer station area, and the connector between the two. The match for the grant is $80,000, which is 20%. And there was already a town meeting that approved that. And so we anticipate that that's going to be basically put in CNR as part of this. The other part, the other aspect of this is if we don't get that steep grant, we won't be spending the money. Okay, but we are working to get that.
When
The next round, I think, is June, July, August. They haven't said when the date is, but typically that would be the cycle.
So we would find out June, July, August?
We won't find out right away, but we have to make sure our application is in for that. There was no way we could make a March 1st submission. If I recall. Is Chris still here? Chris, our steep grant for the repaving of the transfer station facility, I'm sorry, the public works facility. We anticipate that the round for that grant will be when? What's it, July?
To announce beginning of April.
They'll announce when it is, or we will apply then.
The applied for it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got confused with the other one.
They announced awards at the beginning of April.
Okay, so that answers your question, much better than I did. Okay, and then we have the Cable Rock property. So I put in this description, I don't think I need to go through it much longer too, but I put a little bit of background in there so they would understand what it is and what some of its history has been. And the fact that there are liens against all 12 properties. Okay, and these are big liens. And we have an attorney that has been working on this I believe from day one. She is working with the state to see if she can get these liens reduced. So, however, because in this particular case, this property, because it's in both Ashford and Willington, we have worked jointly with Willington throughout obtaining monies to get assessments done, to identify where the highest level of contamination is, or where all contaminated areas are. So this is a pretty cool grant. It's called a BAR grant, and will help us. It'll fund the development of a comprehensive implementation plan for the remediation and redevelopment of the Cable Rock properties that are burdened with brownfield sites, which is a number of them. And because they're all bundled together, they have to be treated together. It requires an allocation of $20,000 to meet the mandatory 10% match. And the program will provide the opportunity to really look at a reuse and development strategy, to come up with a reuse and development strategy. And the expected outcomes are a comprehensive understanding of existing conditions and issues, community participation to develop a successful implementation strategy. I know that this has come up in conversation with the group that's working on our plan of conservation and development for the Planning and Zoning Commission. And effective implementation strategies based on market studies and feasibility analysis. We have a sense that there could be a possibility that we would end up conceivably working with the same company that we had come in to do a 2-phase assessment of these properties before. You know, they're very familiar with them. Even now, we don't know where all the wetlands are. So you can't really plan for development if you don't know where the wetlands are. So that's, you know, part of the what would happen here. And then prioritization of the brownfield sites for cleanup and reuse. I can tell you one of the most contaminated sites is the one of the 2 that Willington has. And, you know, they actually have had some discussions, I guess, about conceivably, when all was said and done, putting solar on it. Priorities for public and private investment. And formation of an advisory steering committee to oversee what happens next. So that's what all of these are. And then if you look down at the funding, hopefully it's somewhat self-explanatory. I know that Christina was, you know, actively involved and had some great ideas on how we could handle some of this when we had our capital improvement committee meetings. So, any questions?
I have one. One thing that we talked about as part of the effort to make sure we're following the letter of the rules with transfers from unassigned fund balance to CNR was to include that transfer in the actual budget
Package.
well, no, in this document,
Oh,
so it would be, I wrote it down, it's not in here now.
I talked to Sherry about that. Okay, so she can elaborate. You were talking about having, if I recall, something in the budget, the general government budget, that shows a transfer in or out, a transfer from one place to another for the funds for capital improvement, correct?
Yeah,
for
so the line item would be. And because this is in the memo that I put together and this is what was shared with the town attorney, it's 110-920-0599960. So like in last year's budget, that line existed. It's not in the version that was shared.
Not the one
This
that
time.
has been published by the system?
Right. So it
So,
would be, where it should be, that it's not, and I think this is one of those check boxes, right? So it should be after youth social service programs on the very last page, there should be another line.
Yeah.
That's 60, and then I was hoping that you could put the board, meaning the Board of Selectmen could put a suggested amount there. And then we could then, as a Board of Finance, either approve or adjust or whatever.
Understood. But you, I think what happened was when I started talking to you about the sharing, there may be a misinterpretation of what that line was. Was that something that had to do with reducing the budget in some fashion? The way we used to apply undesignated funds to reduce the increase in the budget.
Yeah, I know this has been a conversation the last year or two.
Which we don't want to do.
Well, I know this was something that was brought up with, the attorney and the auditor. Because that was one thing that I questioned.
Was it this line item?
It, basically, you guys were doing it as part of your presentation. Where I know it was suggested with the auditor, you show this budget line, this transfer out of undesignated, and it's transferred to CNR.
Okay.
So that is something that I know that we talked about. So gotta
Okay.
decide that's how it's gonna be handled.
And if we do that, does it adversely impact what we're presenting? Does it inflate something?
Yes,
So on the books it does,
yes, but it's part of your budget.
it becomes part of our expense budget.
Mhm.
In other words, we're saying we need these monies to be able to transfer that. We need these monies to be able to transfer.
Let me just double check, hold on.
Cause if you look at last year's budget, the one that went to town meeting, that was approved, that came from the accounting system, there's a line, and it's that 59960. And it's labeled other financing uses trans.
She's trying to pull it up on the system, hold on.
And it is considered a transfer out.
Yeah.
And if you look at that line from last year, the amount that we voted to approve for fiscal year 23, which was 346,774, is there.
Because that is an auditor's entry.
Okay,
So what they did, that was zero. So they do a journal entry to me, so it shows up that it's a transfer out, so it's part of your general fund undesignated, so it shows that activity. So that's the way you've been treating it.
right, well,
right along.
what I'm saying is, and what the auditor, because I put this in front of the auditor and I put it in front of the attorney and they said, okay.
Yes.
Is why can't we, for that fiscal year 26, put a
that
dollar amount
dollar amount.
proactively,
Correct.
instead of having an auditor do a journal
Do the
entry?
entry, correct.
Is that okay?
It is okay, it is however.
So the figure that we would put in there, the selectmen, would be the figure that we're talking about. Bear with me. It would have to be a figure that, have you as a board considered what that figure should be?
No,
Since you're over, because you're, it would be transferred to CNR.
right,
And I think of CNR as something that the Board of Finance rules over.
but it doesn't have to be, is what, I guess what I'm suggesting is, it could originate with you.
We can put it in there.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for what the figure ought to be.
Well, I think we did discuss it at the capital improvement committee, we've averaged about like 300 to 350,000.
Correct, so basically, it's your monies that went, that, 200,000, 120, I'm just using 120, because that's just what we've been talking about. But essentially, as selectmen, you're gonna propose that we're gonna take that $120,000 out of the undesignated,
Yeah.
or you're gonna increase it to 300,000, we're gonna put it in that transfer out, and it's gonna go to CNR. So then the Board of Finance will say, okay, do we want to up that to bring down the fund balance
Right.
percentage, or do we wanna increase to,
Okay.
to?
But isn't that decision a Board of Finance decision?
It is
It would
a
be our
board
recommendation.
Right, just
Yes.
like everything, at
And
the
we
end of the
can-
day, everything in this budget is the Board of Selectmen's recommendation, and then we say, yay or nay.
The percentage of what you leave in undesignated fund balance is determined by the Board of Finance.
It's even in your policies.
Right, but it's,
Talking about a paper trail.
yeah, and it's,
Which it's.
I'm good with that.
you guys can do the same math, and then we can double check it. I mean, look, or we could originate it. I just think,
We can
if
make-
you're preparing the general government budget,
You can make a suggestion.
that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Make a
we can that
suggestion.
recommendation. I was just looking to see if you had already, as a board, thought about how much you thought should be transferred, because I'd rather that whatever we put in there is something that is not necessarily changed. But I'm fine, we're fine with going and doing that. Our next meeting isn't until
Week from Monday.
a week from Monday. We may, what I'd like to do is I might have a special meeting so that we can get that recommendation to you. So you can use that as part of your deliberations.
So just to give some context and background, I pulled what we have transferred historically. And it's ranged from a low of 204,000 to a high of 367. So that's why I'm kind of like, there's really actually not that much debate. We're kind of been relatively stable. We can do the math on what the percentage would be. I think, make a suggestion, or they can originate with us. But
It's been, what do we need to maintain our credit balance?
Well,
Or
we ended the
excuse me, our
fiscal
credit
year,
rating.
we ended the fiscal year with a 14%. So we have that money to play with. More than 300,000, you would still stay above 10%. So,
Good,
um,
good.
I think
Actually,
the
we go all the
important-
way down to 10%?
the important thing to me is that it is included in that line. It's a small nuance, but it then becomes part of the budget that goes to town meeting, and then
People see it.
I
then-
totally agree, because you wanna be transparent about that, you wanna make it very obvious. I think I've also recommended that it be reflected on the first page of the letter.
Yeah.
Budget letter, and I can also, with these descriptions, if you like, for the capital improvement 5-year plan, I can put a line in there as well, so that anybody who's just looking at that on their own, will see that, what the recommendation will be. And then once you've made your decision, we can just say, that's the Board of Finance recommendation.
I think it's important to note too, so this number that's here for CNR 571.
Yeah.
We don't have to transfer 571,000 from unassigned to CNR because we have a balance in CNR.
Correct.
So whatever we put into CNR is like a savings account for capital projects. Some of it's gonna get used and some of it will stay there for
Correct.
next
And what we
year.
And what we do wanna do is we wanna make sure we keep a good balance, available balance in our savings account.
Right.
So we don't want, with what we're doing and how much we're putting in, to bring it down to like $200,000 is all we have in CNR that's available in the event that we have some kind of a problem. So just something to keep in mind. I know Bill has spoken about that at our meetings. So yes, I believe we can do that.
Great.
Thank you for the suggestion.
2 other notes on this. One is important, just overall, that everybody understand that the capital budget does not impact the mill rate, because we are tapping either
Yes.
our savings or outside sources to fund it. This is not something that we are taxing to fund. just
So-
keep that in mind, and if people ask questions, why are we buying this stuff? We save money so we can do these things.
Yeah, but general funds come from the excess of the taxes that we received last year.
Last year and the year before, and the year, I
That's
mean,
what I'm saying.
it accrues over time.
So
Yes.
you do tax the people.
Sure, but some of it's
Initially,
also,
but it
some
goes
of it's
into
also
savings
state
account.
funding, some of it's other funding sources. The other thing I noticed on this is, because for the bar grant, don't we have to have 20,000? Is, from, we have to match it with 10%? So should there be a,
I'm trying to remember, Chris brought this up too.
because I'm just wondering if it should say bar grant 180, unassigned, undesignated fund, 10% match or something,
The, actually.
20,000.
Actually. Didn't have that there because that would come from CNR and it's included in the CNR figure.
In the 570, in the
Is
fund.
it?
I thought it was,
Oh, you're right. Okay, so this is 220. Okay, I was thinking it was 200.
No,
right,
Okay. Do we have to legally? I just wonder, could we get in trouble applying for the grant if we don't have it very clearly outlined on here that?
no,
Okay.
that shouldn't be an issue at all.
no. You just need to make sure you have the match.
I did have, there was a question, in the general government budget. Someone asked, how are we supposed to sell a budget increase of 9.53% to the public when they're already overwhelmed by increasing expenses in daily lives? I don't know who submitted the question, but the taxable budget is an increase of 6.65%, not 9.53. And so maybe we're looking at an entire spending plan or something like that. And I'd also like to, because the taxable budget is only made up of general government, Ashford School and Region 19. Capital improvements is just part, it's money over here, it's part of an overarching spending plan for the whole town. And I would like to read out loud, the response to that question, aside from the fact I pointed out that what the increase really was. The Board of Selectmen are well aware that an overall increase of $1,095,628 is not going to be acceptable. We, like so many, are taxpayers who have raised our families here, are invested in our town and its future, and have been witnesses to the financial challenges that many in our community are grappling with every day. This is not a rich community, and rising prices for food, housing, transportation, and utilities, the slowing economy and the risk of recession are very unsettling. While preparing our general government budget proposal, we took a hard look at our operational needs, and after several detailed reviews and discussions, cut our initial budget down from 5.6% increase to 4.8. Ashford School has also worked hard to bring theirs down to bare bones. Based on discussions with Region 19 Board of Ed members, we know that they are also struggling with balancing needs and tight resources. We will work with the Board of Finance as best we can to support you in your decision-making will help to promote the budget you put forth. So I wanted you to know that we understand how difficult this is. We understand the impact on the community. And, we see it all the time. So, and we want to work with you.
Well, that leads us into the next agenda item, which is just a broader discussion, and I also want to kind of go through my spreadsheet that I love sharing. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Sherry, and all the folks here from the Board of Selectmen, from the library, Chris, who left. I know a lot of blood, sweat, and tears goes into all this. And it's a lot to take in for us as a board. But it's very appreciated how organized it was, and I can see the sort of, not that there was anything wrong with last year, but I can see a progression of organization and, you know, presentation that is very clear and easy to understand.
Very good.
And I do think,
Thank you. I actually have to extend super thanks to Sherry, because this could not be done without her sitting there literally 2 computers side by side going through things. And the selectmen for their reviews and questions, we talked to some of the departments to get more insights about theirs, and so we understand how important it is. So thank you.
so before we jump into my spreadsheet. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions about the capital budget or the general government budget? Okay. So let's take a look at how this all comes together.
Do we need Anne to present the library budget?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
No.
I was asking if we needed you to speak. You've been sitting here all this time.
I don't know. She knew that there had been questions about the library budget.
Right.
And now we provided the information to you that was submitted. One thing I will mention that did come up was, today, as of today, there's no one from the library who is on the insurance plan.
Okay.
Someone was on the plan before and then came off of the plan. However, I found out tonight that that person intends to go back onto the plan. So when you look at the insurance figures for the library submission, they are correct in terms of what they have submitted. At first because we noticed that no one was on the plan today, that we're looking at 18,000 plus that would have gone away on their budget, which would have been a reduction. So now we understand that instead, there is a person who will be on the plan again. Come back on the plan.
Okay. So any questions about the library? Okay. So share my screen.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, so we have, this is the spreadsheet that shows what we know, and we know more this week than we knew the last time that we met. So we have the number of the general government. I don't know if I can increase.
That's okay, it's all right, I'm gonna move up here to
Okay.
be able to see.
Yeah, and double check that I have the right total. That will
It's been
correct.
blazoned in my mind, yes.
My goodness, did we get this?
Oh, no, you didn't get this.
Oh, God. I'm like,
So we have now the general government budget in here, which is a 4.83% increase. We have the school budget, which we got 2 weeks ago. We have the Region 19 number. That is an 11.3% increase. We have our estimated grants, fees and other incomes, that's about 4 million. It's slightly down, negative 0.71%. That's driven largely by the fact that our ECS funding has gone down by 3%. So this is why I was talking about that revenue side of the budget, because if we can get, even $30,000 in there, that will help alleviate some of the pressure on the general government and the school budget.
I just did.
Oh, good. This one line of fire abatements, this is for firefighters in town, the volunteers. They get $1,000 off their taxes for the work that they do. It's just a small item there. Then we get into the the grand list, and this is what a problem for us. Our grand list is going down. And as Lynn noted, the value of, the assessed value on motor vehicles is going down about 18%. That is dramatic. And so that means we have to make up revenue by taxing personal property more, essentially, or we need to drastically cut what we're spending. So if we kept the numbers that we have today, well, and let me just say this too. So there's three major headwinds, three major problems. One, we have a double-digit increase from Region 19. Two, we have declining state aid. Three, we have a drop in our grand list. Those are three major problems. These are not good. These are difficult, will necessitate difficult decisions. And I think it's important that we communicate this to the public, because these are all things that are out of our control. There are, we can control our budgets, but we can't control what the state does. We can't control these wacko rules about motor vehicle. Who can even understand that, so we can't control that stuff. So it puts us in an awkward position this year. So if we were to accept everything as it's proposed, we would, end up with a mill rate on personal property of 38.566. That's an increase from 34.364. So if we wanted to know what that, oh wait, is this not gonna let me do this? I guess I can do the math the old-fashioned way with a calculator. I guess I could estimate it too, but I'm bad at estimating. 38.566 minus 34.364. So that's a 4 million. It's not gonna happen. Right? I think we can all agree with that. So the question is, what is gonna be palatable to voters? What is gonna maintain the level of services that we want? And what will people support at the polls? So just thoughts, comments. I need you guys to talk, because I can't be the only one talking. Because, well, let me put it this way. If it's just me talking, I will make the decisions, but nobody wants a dictatorship, so.
I think you have. Public safety is big. And I look at, what they're fighting on, for the fire department alike. I think that's something that you really have to try and keep intact.
Those increases are minimal for the fire department. They're just we're too heavy. We've been growing too heavy. Then I would say, if you really want, nobody wants to like give it up. Bring it to the town just the way it is.
I mean, that's a strategy. I don't, what do other people think about that?
It's gonna be the way it always is. It's gonna be a struggle to get anybody to cut anything, anyway. Give it to the town to decide.
I'm waiting to speak until all the regular board members have spoken.
Hey, Christina.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, the 4 mil increase is not gonna cut it. It's just not gonna happen. No way, no how. I've already went back to my department and started looking at ways to make some changes. And I think that every department in town needs to go back and start looking at, I don't want to call it creative, but just, we need to look at things that we can actually control. I can't control insurance for anybody. I can't control utilities. I can do things to control utilities though. I can ask my employees in my department to be more cognizant of what they do. We have capital projects in place to try to reduce some of those bills, the LED lighting, the fans. And then honestly, we've looked at staffing and ways we can maybe move things around to not impact the staff as negatively or as bad as I don't want to impact anybody, but the reality is that that's not going to go through. It won't. And I'd be the first to admit that I wouldn't even vote yes for this. There's no way. I'm one of those people who, when we talk about a 4 mil increase, that's an enormous amount of money for me. And I'm not the only one. So I think that every department in town needs to go back and look at things and kind of reevaluate where we sit and what we need to do as individual departments and collectively to make this a little bit more palatable, if you will, and more realistic, because it's not realistic at all, not even close. And I know you said it the other last meeting, how Region 19, we all feel like we have no control over it because when we vote, we feel like we're like the minority and we need to speak up. I know we're in a tough spot with that, but that has a huge effect too. I don't really know that we can really do anything about it. But yeah, that's my feeling is it's not gonna, it wouldn't go through. And I really wouldn't support it. I couldn't support it. So I'll be back probably next week. I'll probably be talking with Catherine and the Board of Selectmen in the near future. I have a meeting next week with my board of directors to try to make some changes. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is there like a percent? You can go back to each of the departments and say, reduce your budget by 3% or something
We
like
could, but we do this every year, and every year they come in and they say, we've done the best we can, we've cut everywhere we can, we're gonna lose people. It's just the
Well-
same thing every
Well, I
year.
think the thing is, it's okay, with the 4 mil increase is what we got now. You're going to be cutting back
Right.
because,
Mhm.
you know, you choose yourselves what you need to do to make it more palatable to you,
Right.
rather than have to go back after it's been rejected maybe once or
Right,
twice.
and instead of us, because at least on the general government side, the Board of Finance has line item authority, so we could go in and slice and dice. But we don't know on the ground exactly where the needs are.
Exactly.
So that, you know, it's a question, do you know, for the departments and for the different parts of this town. Do they wanna be proactive or do they wanna have us?
Well-
And then be reactive?
I mean,
So
if they
let me-
want us to be the bad guys,
Right.
okay, but
Sometimes they
then
do
you
want
may
us to
not,
be
you
the bad
may
guy.
not like what you get, but we're giving you the choice. You make the decision where you think you can, what you can live without.
And this applies to the school as well. I just want to share another thing. So I put together sort of different scenarios, which these are not, I'm not endorsing anything here. I'm just showing what could happen.
Mhm.
So if, let's just say we wanted, the reality of 11% increase from Region 19 means we're behind in terms of, there's no way for us to do a inflation budget, right? 11% is way above inflation. So if, let's say, this far column here, if we wanted to get to the point where taxes were about inflation rate, 2.7% increase, we would actually have to, and we don't touch the, we don't touch Region 19. We would actually have to go to the general government and the school and say, not cut your request by 3%, but cut what we did last year by 3%.
Say that again, I don't understand that. Cut what we did
So I
last
worked
year.
backwards and I said, how do we get to a tax increase that's 2.7%? That's about inflation.
Are you?
And then I
Yeah.
did the math. And said, and left Region 19, because we can't do anything about that on this board. The numbers that we would have to get from the general government and from the school would be a cut from 24-25. So. the
In other
school-
words, you're saying if we started with the 24-25 budget,
Mhm.
you would be saying, cut that by 3%.
Right.
Which takes us down below,
Yes.
oh my God.
That would be
Okay.
very bad, but wait, no.
Well, the
just
only
hold on.
comment I wanted to make is that Region 19, what you're looking at is their initial
Mhm.
cut at the budget. They always, historically, every single time, they bring that budget down. So that's, I don't know how far, and I realize we're the ones in the barrel,
Mhm.
but they will be bringing that number down.
Mhm.
The other part of it is.
Well, before we get to that, I just want to point out too, so I looked at, let's say we kept the budgets flat. We did an increase. We didn't increase general government or school. We still would be looking at a 6.2% increase to people's taxes.
Correct.
Because of the Region 19 and the less state funding and the lower grant list. So that's how behind the barrel we are because of all these external forces.
So the only thing that helps us too right now is the number of children to at the school, the number's declining. So when it declines, you can't go even or lower. So that's helpful on that aspect. The government side, I mean, there's gotta be something you can cut to bring it down.
Well, first of all, I know you made a statement saying that, when this board has said, go back and reduce your budget further, that we didn't do that. We've always done that. I've never experienced in all the years I've been involved with this, which is 20-something. Never experienced when you said, hey, this is unpalatable, untenable, we
I'm
cannot
saying
do.
this year as we're making a budget, we all know where we're going. We all know who have been on this board for quite some time. We see the percentages. We all know that.
I don't know what you mean,
So-
so please allow
I'm
me.
saying what we're presenting, what everybody's presenting. Everybody knows this is trouble, everybody.
Yes,
So
we do.
why present it if you know it's gonna be trouble?
What we did was we presented what we feel, for example, general government budget, what we feel is a true viable operating budget, which is, we have a responsibility to do. We don't second guess where you guys are gonna go. We shouldn't be doing that. That's your job, is to look at it and go, okay, overall, because we're accountable for the general government budget. I can't speak to the Board of Ed budget, the Region 19 budget, just the general government budget. So what we did was we took what the departments brought in and gave us, looked at it, went through it, I can't tell you how many times, went through it, reduced it, we worked with it. One thing, the other piece of this that I wanted to mention is we also are gonna revisit the revenue piece. So we're gonna try and help from that end. But I will tell you that well, first of all, we always get cut. We know we always get cut. So if we come in with a budget where we think that it's like so dicey that we might not make it, or we gotta cut jobs, that would not be, that isn't really a good operating budget. We're putting forth what we think is what is needed. If we have to go back and cut, we will find places to cut. It will hurt. So don't think we fluffed it up because we didn't do that.
I did not say that.
But expecting us to come in with something where we are reducing, we're looking at everybody else's budgets and we're going, okay, we're gonna have to cut jobs. And bringing that to you would not be appropriate.
What were you gonna say, Roger?
Well, I'm only concerned in the sense that, here we are, I mean, we're gonna lose a tax collector. What do you think it's gonna cost us to get a new tax collector?
We actually, what we have projected is, we've already gotten some responses, from, I'm gonna say, what appear to be qualified individuals, and the salary we posted is the same one that's being paid this year, not even with the 3% increase for next year. So that's one.
Okay,
And there's, and also in that particular budget, there was 18,000 put in there for, an assistant. And only about $2,500 has been used. Okay, and there are no plans at this point that we can see to bring in somebody else. So we cut 9,000 out of that 18,000, going, okay, we'll leave some in there. Now, Bill's reaction is that, it's gonna be a person who isn't going to be able to do the job or whatever, and, it could be a problem. There are qualified people out there, and they would love to work in a town like Ashford. We've talked with our hires, our assessor, our new hires, whatever. They love working here. People who've worked here for years love that. This is not the same environment as many other places. So even with our senior center director, agent for the elderly, what we did was that person took a pay cut to come and work here. Okay, and she's doing a bang up job. Okay, and she seemed to be very happy. So we are trying to be responsible in terms of what we're presenting for these. We didn't say, oh my God, we think we're gonna have to pay $90,000 for a tax collector. We also have, that salary is at the same level, if you will, of the other managers that we have for our departments. And, I call them managers, but they don't really have people reporting to them because they're doing the job themselves. But they're accountable for the entire department and what that department has to produce. So again, if we very much understand the position you're in trying to make the decisions, we want to help wherever we can. So I would not want to get a dictum that says, you gotta go back and you gotta cut 3%, or you gotta go back to the prior year's budget and cut that. Because I don't even know how we could function if we did that. It's not like prices of things are not going up. They are. And as far as revenues for the upcoming year, it'll be interesting because we know that 3 houses are being built right now. The building official is going crazy. So we know those revenues will come up just based upon 3 more houses, okay, with families in them and cars and whatever. So.
Hopefully they don't go to Region 19.
Sorry?
Said hopefully they don't go to Region 19.
Well, and the other thing too is about Region 19. Yes, they always bring their budget down. And of course, we want to go to the meeting that they have to discuss the budget so that we can convey that here's the situation we're in and it's dire when all is said and done. What's the other thing with Region 19?
Well, let me just take everybody through these different scenarios as well. So we have the proposed budgets, which are ranging in an increase of what, about 5% and about 4%. I laid out, okay, well, what if both the school and the general government increased 3%? That would be a 9-10% increase in taxes. That still seems awfully high. If we said a 2% increase, we would end up with an 8.5% increase in taxes. Or a 1% increase, we have a 7% increase. This scenario with a 1% increase for both the general government and the school is about a 2 mil increase. Let's see what's the number.
Yeah.
So
2,
3,
5,
6, 6,
2.5.
3, 4, 3, 6, 4. So that's 2.5. Yeah. What does this board think about saying to both the town and the school? Come back to us with what a 1% increase would look like. What would the impact be? And I think on the school side, it's gonna be cutting teachers. And on the general government side, I think there'll be some major pain, maybe missing, maybe not.
We'd have to
some
cut
people as well, yeah. Do we want to say? Do we feel comfortable saying that? Do we not? I know the school is very anxious for us to give them direction because the longer we wait, the more difficult it is for them to make decisions. They have to negotiate with unions. It's a whole big thing. Can we give folks direction tonight so that they can come back next week and tell us, here's what that would mean? And then we could then go, oh my God, we can't do that, or you know what, we can live with that, or you know, or some combination of it.
What would be an acceptable mill rate increase? I mean, you've all been doing this longer. What would people accept?
I mean, some people don't want any number.
Well, of
Rate
course,
increase.
I mean, ideally, of course.
And I looked up the numbers in the past, I can find them, but generally, a mill to 2 mills, I feel like is where we end up.
1 to
And I
2.
have to agree with something that Catherine said too, people are hurting them.
Mhm.
They've got hundreds of dollars in bills for electricity, you
Yeah.
know, the food is up there. Anything we put on them, it's gonna hurt them.
No doubt about it this year.
What I would like to suggest is that you give us an opportunity, Sherry and me, to go back and look at the revenue piece. Because this is based upon your worst case scenario
Mhm.
and with preliminary numbers. So having the 2 boards go back and go through the exercise of, this is not a small exercise to go and try to figure out how to bring it down to a 1% increase. It's not small at all.
Mhm.
Based upon the fact that we've got revenues that we're thinking would not be enough.
Well, I would say for the town side, we could say a net impact. You know, so like if you can find, if let's say, all right, so if we said 1%.
You mean net in terms of revenues to
Yeah,
expenditures?
exactly. So you have the flexibility there. So if it's 408. 3, 2.6.
And again, when is the Region 19 meeting?
I was just looking that up because I had it on here.
Is that right? Wait a minute. So 1% increase. Is it only $40,000?
I thought I
It's a-
had it.
Oh, it's a $40,000 difference.
Yeah, that's the difference.
And then 40, it would be cutting 150, basically, from the
Mhm.
general government, if we set a 1% increase. So that 150, you could find some of that in revenues,
Yeah.
let's say 50, and then you would have to find 100 on the expenditure side.
March 25th.
Cause that would get us net, that would get us to where we need to be in terms of mill rate.
Yeah.
So I think you could take into account both the revenue and the expenditure side.
Okay, we're gonna do that. By the way, this is great. Okay, how you laid this out. I'll just let you know, the Board of Selectmen, as we went through, we had a calculator that said, okay, if we wanted to bring it down to a 3% increase. Okay, what would we have to cut, you know? So we did the same kind of thing with another kind of calculator. What didn't take all of this because this is more your role. But this is very good. And again, I think that Region 19 is gonna come down. Unfortunately, their meeting isn't until March
Yeah.
25th.
Mhm.
Which.
Yeah, it cuts it close, and then maybe we get a little money back on that motor vehicle change. Maybe there's a little bit more in the grand list from these campground 60 vehicles. I mean, so
Yeah,
we may
It
have
has
the.
changes.
We may have the ability to return money. The other thing, so the question of what has the mill rate increase been historically?
good.
We've ranged from, I'll just go from 2002 forward. 2.6, 1.4, 0.7, 0.7, 0.1, 5.45
Ooh,
in 2010. I don't know what happened that year. 0.6, 0.5, 0.82. Mill rate went down.
2010, by the way, 2010 was probably when we had the water problem.
Okay.
And we didn't have a CNR fund.
We've had, in 2015, we had a 2 mill increase. So, I mean, it's ranged from
Well,
a point nothing to the max is at 5, that's an outlier. I would say generally, we've had between, 0.5 to 2.
the problem is, part of the problem is, just like some people looked at the general government budget and their questions, it was, the vast majority of the questions were, how come is this percentage of increase? And some of them were small budgets. I always look at the amount, not the percentage, because the amount is more meaningful. Just like with the mill rates, those mill rates were different values at that point as well. So the actual impact on the people for the change in the mill rate was different. So you could have a low value for what's a mill worth? And you went up 2 mills and it's not as much money. Now, for us, our mill is worth, I forget what it's worth.
Well, it's about, do it off the grand list, so it's
Yeah.
about 363,000.
So kind of like for the uninitiated, they don't realize that that's the real component is the money. That people are having to pay. So, or what the value of the mill is. All right, well, I can tell you that I know. We're going back to look at revenues because, and I'm glad that the questions came up because it made us take another look. And when all was said and done, I wasn't really looking at revenues with the Board of Selectmen. To be quite candid, we were so focused on the expenditures and trying to figure out, okay, what do we need for a decent operating budget here? What can we cut? That the revenue piece was not really looked at as a balancing factor. So we're gonna go back, and I know we're gonna do that, no matter what you decide, we're gonna go back and do that anyway. I'm gonna also be going back and pulling the Board of Selectmen back together to go, what else can we cut? So,
But I mean.
because
for
it's our
me-
job.
Yeah, I mean, but I look at the general government key areas of, $77,000 for wages, $73 for the fire department to deal with dispatch, their increased costs, health benefits, 38,000. The contracted services, wetland agents and what have you, and these things that we require, the register of voters. I mean, we're looking at $232,000.
But we only, what we didn't show is what we cut, what we
Yeah.
reduced.
Yeah, I'm just.
But when all is said and done, our total is. Back to. 100
Oh, that was the other thing I was gonna,
172,509.
the other thing I was gonna point out is that we do have a reval next year, so our mill rate is gonna go down. Well, it doesn't mean someone's taxes are going to go down.
No.
But the mill rate, which is a number some people fixate on, will go down. So we're kind of like, it's like a perfect storm of badness this year with
Oh, I love
all
that,
these
yes.
elements working against us. The year before reval, it's like it's all coming to a head at the exact wrong moment, unfortunately. Could we vote as a board this evening to say we would like the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed to come back to us next week with what a 1% increase would look like? What would that do to their budgets? Could we, but because I don't want to say that to anybody without this board voting for it, right? It's not my decision to say that, so. But it wouldn't be, it's not
Just to see what it looks.
just to
like.
see what it looks like. It
Well,
would
that's
not
an
be- we're not-
exercise in futility then, and it's quite a bit of work to do that. If in fact, just to see what it would look like. Is not, hey, that's what we wanna go with. So we're gonna go back, we're gonna look at every department again, we're gonna try, and we're gonna have to reach out to all the departments in a period of a week. Okay, less than a week,
Less than that, because, yeah.
guess I'm not taking tomorrow off. And try to convince them. That's part of it, is what can you cut from this? I can tell you, the eyes are gonna be rolling like crazy. I think what would happen is every assistant we've got would go. And I know that the assessor desperately needs her assistant. We even have work that is being done in our, by our, building clerk to help the assessor right now, even with the person that the assessor has now acquired. So, but that's what I see initially. Every one of the support, extra support mechanisms are gone. We can't cut their salaries. Well, I don't think we can.
Contract.
They'll leave, even though this is a great place to work.
Mhm.
And when it comes to contracted
about
services,
insurance,
we
yeah.
have no recourse. So, it's also, one of the things I've been trying to do while first selectman is make sure that we are maintaining our buildings, because we had no maintenance plan for any of our buildings. And, you know, kind of looking at everything and going, what do we need here? And we have required inspections and things that cost us a fortune. I mean, when I say, you know, the fire alarms, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't mean to sound like I'm whining, that's not the point. The point is that having this go back through and go, okay, gang. We're at 4.8%. We need to bring it down to 1%. Because the Board of Finance wants to see what that looks like.
And we can't do anything about Region 19.
Right.
Might be
Other
able to do
than-
a little bit about, you know, so once again, we gotta take it on the chin for Region 19.
And the lack of state funding
Yeah.
and the change to the way that motor vehicles are being valued. These are all things that are out of our control.
Well,
It's not, nobody's done anything wrong. Nobody's.
we know,
nobody's in
we're not
trouble.
offended.
Nobody's wasting anything. It's just the reality that if we put these budgets as presented to referendum,
Mhm.
they will fail. Then we will have to make more draconian cuts. So what's the better way forward, I guess? Yeah. I mean, we could say, come to us and show us what a 2% increase. I mean, the numbers aren't that drastically different, you know, a 7% increase in taxes versus an 8%. You know, but it's still, that's if we set a 2% increase, that's about a 3 mil increase. That's still really, really high.
And this is being truly driven. For the most part, by Region 19. And the thing is that Region 19, I'm sorry, Ashford School are the building walls. Region 19 is the roof. If you don't have those walls up, if you haven't created those walls by, you know, teaching the kids so they can be prepared. And I'm tired of the roof cutting into the education opportunities that the Ashford School kids get. There are a number of things we get that we don't have that Wellington and Mansfield have in their grade schools. So, you know, I absolutely sympathize with, empathize actually with the issues that we have.
Can you do another?
I just want to make sure we're not doing anything that's truly an exercise in futility because I
Christina,
don't. Yes, Paul.
so I hate to interrupt the first select woman, but I'm gonna point something out here because it sticks out like a sore thumb. When she said that about the Wellington and Mansfield schools, there's also something that Wellington, Mansfield have that Ashford doesn't have. And that's an enormous tax base.
True.
So
True.
I'll be honest, I'm sure everybody knows where I stood on the warehouse or whatever you want to call it. But we did it to ourselves, or some people did it to the town. So I don't have the answer. My answer would be we need to look at departments that we don't need, period. Get rid of them. That's what the town voted for when they shot these things down.
They did not vote for that.
No, they did. They voted for that because they decided that they don't want certain things. And I know we've had people who've been at meetings who said, oh, I don't care if my taxes go up. but I don't think that's the majority. And I mean, maybe Judy's right. Put it to the town and see what happens. I don't think the outcome is gonna be good
That would be
at all.
foolish.
Okay.
That would be foolish.
But-
We just keep
We
going.
know that that would be
Oh.
shotgun.
Here we are.
So I don't wanna get into the warehouse debate. I
No, I'm
think
not
it's,
getting into a
I think
debate. I'm
it's
just
a
like,
valid.
you're comparing
No, I
things
understand.
that aren't comparable. Like you're not.
I Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think it is an important issue that we are a town that relies on homeowners to fund the bill, period.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a commercial tax base. Now.
We do,
Wellington
but it's
doesn't
only
have that much
6%.
one. I mean,
Yeah.
they've got a train, you know, they've got the gas station, like, that's about it.
We do have a dispensary going in.
But it's a big element. That grand list number, if it goes up, is a big help in mitigating the impact of taxes. But we have what we have today. That's all we can do. Now, long-term planning, and we have smart zoning and, you know, business friendly, et cetera. Yes, absolutely. And I know the plan of conservation development targets certain areas for development. So
Right.
let's just not get dragged into that debate. What are we going to do tonight to give guidance to the town and the school so that we can move forward?
I would motion to do the 1%.
Would anybody like to second that motion?
I'll second it. We gotta do something. You know, we can either 1%, 2%, 3%, we gotta start somewhere.
Because if we don't cut it, people aren't gonna be able to afford the taxes, and then you really have problems, because nobody will be paying the bill.
But what you're really saying is cut it to 1%.
Well,
Each entity.
both the town,
Okay,
Yeah.
but you're really
the town,
asking us all to cut it to 1%.
right,
Because the big bully is Region 19.
we can't tell them what to do.
Well, we can, I'll be calling them tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I think that's definitely worthwhile. So we have a motion and a second. Paul, do you have any comments on that?
No, not at all.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right,
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so. Obviously, I don't need to communicate this to you guys because you're here. I'll need to send an email to the school tomorrow, letting them know what we discussed and that we would like to see what a 1% increase would look like. I'm gonna ask that they come next week with that. I don't know how realistic that is. I don't know how realistic that is for you guys.
Oh, it's horrible. I'll
Um,
let you know.
I think,
what else, we've been talking about it, and we just go around in circles.
Yeah,
Right, but so much for public safety if we're cutting them 1%.
Well, if we have, if we have, we have.
so
Or
if we
retaining
were to
people.
give you, if we were to give the town and the school 2 weeks. Then. Because our deadline to make a decision on these budgets, according to the calendar, is March 27th. So we could, in theory, give you 2 weeks to come back.
You know what the problem is with that, Christina? It is that, okay, so we spend 2 weeks going and doing that. You see what that looks like. And then ultimately, some monies are probably gonna be restored back. Because it's going to be so draconian. And some fundamental services are going to be dramatically reduced. That then we have to go back again and adjust again.
Right.
And so that's what I'm really trying to avoid, is work as smart as possible. You
So
know,
is
that's your
1 week-
decision. You've already made your
Is
decision.
1
I'm
week
just
enough time? We
concerned.
didn't technically say in the motion, the timeline. Is 1 week ridiculous? Not for,
1 week, I think, is not going to be enough. Especially for the school, because they're gonna have to have their board, they've gotta get something to get and do their whole budget. I don't think 1 week is gonna be
so
enough.
then we give it 2 weeks.
So 2 weeks, and then how close are we to
So
the
that
Region 19 meeting? That's the 19th or 23rd?
26th, you guys said. was
2 weeks is the 20th and then the 25th for the Region 19.
And what they typically do is they have their sort of public hearing. No, they have their public hearing the day before the actual referendum. So it's their, I'm trying to think if they meet after they have, present what the superintendent's put forth.
So they have the public hearing on March 25th,
Yep.
and then they have Region 19 budget adopted on April 1st.
Okay.
And then our public hearing is a week later on April 8th. So that's why we need to make our decision by March 27th.
Mhm.
So again, if we go until March 20th to see what these scenarios look like,
We still won't know what Region 19 is gonna have.
we're not gonna know. Well, we can wait until March 27th to make a final decision, so we can have a meeting on the 20th and say, here's what this looks like with a 1% increase. Maybe talk it out, discuss. Then make a final decision on March 27th when we know what that Region 19 number is.
I just suspect that one of the things that's gonna happen is that the school is gonna come back and say they're gonna have to cut teachers.
Mhm.
And in the past, that kind of threat has been thrown out there by people who were not as professional. And I remember a previous superintendent, okay, that was the thing, they'd come to the meetings, and go, oh, we're gonna have to cut teachers if you cut us at all. And when you talk about taking them to a 1%, they will absolutely have to cut teachers. And they whipsawed about anyway, you know. Okay.
I mean, you don't have to tell me about the value of teachers. But the factors of the budget are the factors of the like, I can't make the state aid go up higher. I can't make, and, you know, we may see, right? I mean, this part of this process is people get up in arms and they'll show up and they'll speak up about what matters to them. And that may tell us as a board that there's an appetite for certain mill rate that, we're trying to be more moderate with this sort of next step. So do we decide March 20th then for coming back? Give it 2 weeks.
I was just thinking that maybe not having to go full 2 weeks. I don't know, in this, I don't know. I just know, I know I'm gonna go back immediately and start looking at it, and I know we'll be working together
Mhm.
and, and to be quite, well, to see what we can come up with. And again, balancing it.
I guess worst case scenario, let's say, say by next week, and then touch base with the board and see if they're gonna be, be ready at that time.
You
and
could
whether-
have, your motion say that the board leaves it to the based upon from the selectmen and the board of ed in terms of the timing.
See if we're both gonna be ready by that time. I mean, you can ask, and they'll tell
And we
you.
don't both have to come back at the same
Same
time.
time.
Well, we didn't include a date in the
No.
motion, so I think that. I don't think we need to amend it.
Yeah, I would just say plan for next week and reach out to both, Catherine and Cindy and see whether we'll be ready.
the Board of Ed is also not gonna be happy that we made this decision and they're not here at the meeting.
Unfortunately, they had a meeting tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be prickly about that. But I'm trying to act expeditiously so that, because what I heard from the Board of Ed is, don't leave this to March 27th, because that will be in real trouble.
And
So
I
I'm
appreciate
trying
what
to
you're
give
doing.
them guidance sooner rather than later.
Mhm.
Shantae says, I'm here. Did somebody message her or something? Shantae, do you want to say something, or you just want
Who's
to
that
tell us that
message?
you're here? Um. All right, so a week, unless I hear otherwise, and I'll let you know what I hear back from the school in terms of timing. And we'll see, and maybe some things will break in our way in the next 2 weeks with the grand list and with magic state funding that might appear, I don't know.
Should've got a few more trailers at the camp.
Yeah.
Who can tell how many are there because they don't let our assessor in?
Oh, is that?
That's why the aerial view is very good.
All right, well, any other comments or questions? I mean, I think I'm very heartened by this. Everybody's sitting around this table, and I think everybody understands this isn't pointing fingers, it's just the economic reality that we're dealing with. It's not. It's nobody's
I love
fault.
the way you called it a perfect
Happy
storm.
about it.
No,
Nobody's
happy
happy
about it.
No.
All right, let's see if there's anything else on the. So,
Someone's check in the check.
oh, Shantae, you're here because you're on the board.
Is it Holland? Oh, she's, oh,
She's
board.
just saying she's from the Board of Ed, yes.
Oh, maybe they
Usually-
made a decision about the money for the solar.
You were saying the board was here, I'm here, and have been relaying to Jane, she's expecting your email. Okay, all right, well, that's good, at least. It's not total shock. Thank you, Shantae, for that. You can unmute yourself if you want, you don't have to chat. Ashford BOD next meeting. Oh,
okay,
Shantae, what?
Yeah, it was me. I just didn't want to be rude, so I figured I would just type it in there.
Oh, you're not being rude. So are you in the room with Jane right now?
No, we finished I don't know, maybe 8:30-ish. And then I came home and immediately logged in so I could try to catch some of you guys. I know she had to go to she had a hockey game or something for one of her kids. So I've been texting her trying to like relay things. So she's expecting your email.
So
Okay.
Shantae, did they make a decision tonight about the monies for the MHR's solar work?
Is that for the architect in particular?
Yeah, basically it's yeah, architecture service or whatever. But they,
We discussed, I don't think we did make a decision. We discussed that we were expecting a reimbursement from the state
right,
for a project, the underground tanks.
yes.
And we were hoping that that's where that could come from. We don't have an exact date for when we should
Yeah,
get that
that
back.
was-
The legislators are in session right now, and it's got to go through as a bill.
And well, and that was about, yes, and it's on the governor's desk and it's one of the smallest things of all the things he's got on that.
Yeah, so hopefully
of
he
those
just
types of projects.
checks that right
And-
off for us.
Yeah, and we have our legislators behind it, so that's how it got on the governor's desk. The, did they say what the reimbursement from the tank was gonna be? I thought it was like 3,400 or 34,000.
More than that.
It's more than that.
Good.
Cindy said if her math is correct, it was 60,000.
60,000, and ultimately that was to be split between the non-lapsing fund and the town, because
Yeah.
we both put up monies. So it's
Yeah, I
basically
grabbed my book.
30,000, okay, 30,000 available from both sides. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I'm delighted that Cindy brought that up. She's been a terrific partner with
Yeah,
this.
so I have written down 34K reimbursement. So I'm not sure if that's the total or if that's what each account would get.
Yeah, that's the
Probably the
number.
school has.
That's the number I had,
Okay.
and I didn't know if it was half or whatever. But anyway, yes, 30, it probably is.
All right, and so we have another piece of information in the chat, which is the next Board of Ed meeting is March 20th. So
Yes.
technically, March 13th would be better to come back to the Board of Finance. But we'll see. That is because it's such a quick timeline. All right, with that, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
A second.
Keith made the motion, Judy seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Nice job.
So 10:20 PM.
Oh, God.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. It's not fun.
That was rough.
It's not for the faint of heart.
John, are you available for a special meeting on Monday?
No, after, there, yeah.
How do I get it?